clever pun.
Ahoy and ahoy to the Kongversation. I'm Captain Hyle Russell.
And I be Admiral Malik. Yeah.
It be first mate Malik. It be.
Right. Of course, yes.
All right, enough of that. It's our it's our annual. Yeah. It's our annual Talk Like a Pirate Day episode of the Kongversation, and that is the extent that we will be talking like a pirate because that sucks. That's no good. Nobody likes
what kind
that.
Of holiday is this? Why did they make a holiday out of this?
It was charming when it first started, like I don't know when it exactly first started, but it first gained some sort of notoriety in the aughts. And I was like, oh, that's cute. We like pirates, right? Oh, talk like a pirate. That's fun. And then we all just quickly realized that, no.
Pirates didn't talk like this.
No. So even though this is our 12th annual Talk Like a Pirate Day episode, I don't like the actual tradition of talking like a pirate. So we just use this episode format as an occasion to discuss the multitude of pirates in the Donkey Kong universe and the shared world of Rare. And contrary to what you might think, it's not always about Sea of Thieves, because the history of piracy in the DKU, that goes all the way back to 1994, 30 years ago, to when the Gangplank Galleon first showed up in Donkey Kong Country. And the Gangplank Galleon showing up, of course, that became the thematic and the visual hook, if you will, for the second Donkey Kong Country and land games. And that's what I want to discuss on this episode with you, Malik. The Kremling crew of Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Land 2. The pirate Kremlings.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you got me.
Yeah. Well, all of the individuals and baddies that make up the pirates of those games. I think, and there are obvious fans who don't feel that way. There are exceptions to this rule, but I think by and large, it is widely held that this is the favorite iteration of the Kremlings within Donkey Kong Country fandom. Like I said, there are people out there who might prefer the more military-oriented Kremlings of the first Donkey Kong Country, or the bizarre nudist of the third Donkey Kong Country. Or
that's the theme for the third game. I like that.
Yeah, the leather daddies of Donkey Kong 64. But I think like the bulk majority, at least 60%, would say, no, I like the pirate Kremlings from Donkey Kong Country too.
Yeah, because I think that's where they went all out with the theming, honestly. Yeah. And we'll be discussing what makes the pirate Kremlings work on this episode. We'll be talking about our favorites, the various little details that you might not have noticed about the pirate Kremlings. But this is also the traditional close to Stinky Ape Summer, Malik. It's over after this. This is the last conversation that's part of Stinky Ape Summer, because the autumn equinox is this Sunday. And so the smell has finally dissipated from the Stinky Ape.
Yeah, it's blowing away with the autumn leaves. Of course, that's above the equator. If you're below the equator, then it's the spring equinox this weekend. So, farewell to well-groomed New World Monkey Winter, Stinky Ape Summer's Southern Hemisphere counterpart. But if you're mourning, if you're already mourning the passing of summer, then let me just remind you, because I like to do this every time summer comes to a close. You have the Donkey Kong universe. You have an escape into the summertime whenever your heart desires. So when the cold, blustery winds, not that bluster, Malik.
That's why you said it, because you knew I'd say something.
I realized the mistake as soon as it escaped my lips.
Mistake.
Whenever the low light of the midwinter brings you down, you can always just plug in a cartridge or a disc or pull it up on your Switch and escape into a tropical oasis in your mind with the DKU. So it's all a matter of perspective. But in the meantime, I hope our audience continues to make DK Vine and the Kongversation part of their entertainment and leisure throughout the next autumn or spring, depending where you are, because we've got a lot of stuff lined up over the next few months. Are you ready for this, Malik? Are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right, Donkey Konga's 20th anniversary. We're doing a spotlight on Donkey Konga.
I can't wait.
You're laughing like there's some sort of joke here.
No. I know there's just, I think there's just a little part of you where it's like, oh God, Donkey Konga.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to discussing ditties and...
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. We've also got Super Mario Party Jamboree coming out in October. We will be continuing to monitor the build towards the opening of the Donkey Kong Country theme park at Super Nintendo World in Japan, as well as the one in Orlando next year. And the release of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in January. And of course, this November, the 30th anniversary of Donkey Kong Country. So we'll be going all out for that. We've got a lot of fun stuff in the works here on The Kongversation and at DK Vine. And by the way, speaking of The Kongversation, we are live streaming this episode on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/DK Vine. Hello to the live stream. We've got Days of Matt. We've got March Rose. We've got Giga Strike. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, hey everybody.
It is a work day. It is a weekday, a Thursday mid-afternoon. So
Tell that to Chris Alcock, who just showed up.
Oh, Chris Alcock just showed up. Well, it's after the work. It's after the work hours over in Chris Alcock land. So that makes sense. But we'll be checking in with the live stream as we go. Now, we've done a live Talk Like a Pirate Day episode before, Malik. I don't need to tell you. The most memorable episode of The Kongversation we've ever done is back in 2019. We did a live one there. There's never been a hard structure to these Talk Like a Pirate Day episodes. It's just been an excuse to talk about pirates, but we do that on like every 8th episode of The Kongversation anyway. So when I was like, hey, we've got a new podcast, The Kongversation, back in 2013. We should do a Talk Like a Pirate Day episode every year. I wasn't really thinking that Rare would be announcing a pirate game in 2015. And that would kind of monopolize a lot of the discussion and chat throughout the whole podcast lifespan. But, we kicked off Stinky Ape Summer this year with a live broadcast of The Kongversation. So I figured we'd close it with another. And maybe we'll make this a tradition. Maybe we'll make it part of the episode format going forward, a live Talk Like a Pirate Day. Maybe we won't. Maybe this is the only time I'm going to do that. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I remember calling into the second Talk Like a Pirate Day for that whole Lobo Destroyo thingy, and that was fun. That was really fun. So I'm glad you guys have kept up the tradition of Talk Like a Pirate Day.
It's not so much we keeping up the tradition. It's me never knowing when to quit.
That's cool. That's a tradition. That counts in my book.
I don't fold too often when it comes to anything. And I'm just like, oh, that's a thing? Okay, I'm going to keep doing that thing.
I'm in the same boat as you. Yeah. Pirate fun, I guess. Yeah, boat.
Yeah.
Dinghy. I'm in the same dinghy.
Dazabat says, wouldn't it be fun if Nintendo announced the Switch 2 during the course of the stream? I thought about that. I did think that was a possibility because of the historical September Nintendo Direct. The fear that, like, oh no, there's going to be major news breaking during our bullshit Talk Like a Pirate Day episode. Here's the thing, though. Playtonic did announce a new game about 30 minutes ago. It's a new Playtonic Friends game called Dunk Dunk, but Yuka and Laylee are in it, Malik. So they did throw me a minute version of that, where it's like, oh, okay, there's a new ukulele appearance in a Playtonic Friends title. That means I have to cover that. I have to do news about it. But first, I have to talk about Donkey Kong Country 2 Kremlings and be like, oh, I really like the way Cannon's nipples point this way compared to the way Clump's nipples point that way.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, come on, Playtonic. It's Talk Like a Pirate Day. You couldn't wait to announce your basketball Playtonic Friends title like the next day, like on Friday.
It's not Dunk Like a Pirate Day. It's Talk Like a Pirate Day. Thank you.
Sea of Thieves had a basketball tie-in this week as well.
Oh, yeah. Ellie the Elephant.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, this is just me ranting before we get into the actual subject matter. Sea of Thieves, well, it wasn't so much Sea of Thieves, it was Microsoft, it was Xbox. They partnered with the WNBA team, the New York Liberty. They've done this in the past to like cross-promote games, like putting the game logo on the court in their home arena, and they did this crossover with Sea of Thieves this year because the New York Liberty had a game on Talk Like a Pirate Day, and I think the Xbox Sports Outreach Program division, whatever, they were like, oh, yeah, New York Liberty game on Talk Like a Pirate Day, we'll make it Sea of Thieves themed. And they did this really, like, I don't even understand. Like, it's just, oh, there's going to be a treasure hunt in New York where you can get tickets to the game or win Xbox stuff, Game Pass, Whatever. That's all well and good. I wouldn't ordinarily report on something like this because it's just a little bit too corporate for my taste. But the New York Liberty's mascot is an elephant named Ellie. So I had to do a news story about it, Malik, because of the deception.
Oh, of course.
Because of course
I would do the same thing.
We are DK Vine. We report on Rare, but our focus is primarily on the Donkey Kong universe. And of course, the Kong's beloved animal buddy introduced in Donkey Kong Country 3, who would later appear in Donkey Kong Land 3. And of course, Donkey Konga was Ellie the elephant. And when Rare or the Sea of Thieves social accounts start talking about Ellie the elephant, we've partnered with Ellie the elephant, I'm going to trick people into clicking on that.
You tricked me.
Yeah, so
like, what is this madness? I gotta click on it.
Come on, Rare. Come on. I mean, really. Come on, Xbox. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, before we get started, I want to remind people to check out the new DKU Lore Tour video on our YouTube channel. It's called Breaking the Fourth Wall with a Barrel, the video game reality of Rare. People seem to hate this one, Malik. I think I went too far. Yeah, I think I think I got high on my own supply a little bit, and I was like, okay, well, people seem to like the first few DKU Lore Tours, so let me talk about the fifth dimension and the space that Donkey Kong could exist and be real. Not real in the sense of our reality, but I got down this rabbit hole of nonsense, and I enjoyed making it, but in retrospect, I think it might have been a bit much
Nah,
for...
I feel like it was the same amount of nonsense I'm used to, and I mean that with all the love in the world.
Okay, so rather than going too far, you're saying I've been out on that ledge this whole time.
Yeah. These people, who are these people who are like, I don't understand this? Well, welcome to DK Vine. This is just what we do.
I think I need to make
the madness.
I think I need to make the next one more accessible. I'm just going to do a video about Donkey Kong's birthday.
Well, I'd still watch that. You'd still have your flavor and spin on it, but yeah, whatever you got to do.
I think my flavor is an acquired taste, Malik. I think it's like cilantro. A lot of people just taste soap.
I haven't had cilantro, so I don't know. I can't speak from experience.
I am one of those people who taste soap whenever you put cilantro in something. So I can't go to Chipotle because everything just tastes like I've been naughty and cursing up a storm.
Very naughty.
Oh, yeah. For more on that, listen to the episode Dustin and I did on the naughties a couple of weeks back. People like that one. People seem to like that one. And I was just like, okay, people are on board with that. I'm going to start talking about quantum physics and the various levels of reality and how Shigeru Miyamoto might have been influenced by a parallel dimension where Mario is real, and of course Donkey Kong is real, but also Donkey Kong might exist in our reality at the same time. And apparently cartoon beavers is the threshold. You can't go beyond cartoon beavers. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the pirate Kremlings of Donkey Kong Country 2. Because, like I said at the top of the episode, I think by and large these are everybody's favorites. Not everybody, but I mean, when you're pulling the entirety of the fandom, more than half would probably say, yeah, I like the pirate Kremlings in Donkey Kong Country 2. Because they just work. When you're trying to do something new with the concept of the Kremlings, which, by the way, weren't even originally conceived for Donkey Kong Country. There's various conflicting sources formally at Rare who argue about this, but the most commonly held belief about where they originated from was from a project that didn't get very far called Johnny Blastoff. And they had these crocodilian humanoids just sitting around, and they were like, oh, this kind of works for Donkey Kong's world. Let's make these the antagonist. And, of course, the Donkey Kong Country Kremlings, as I said, they had a military theme. They were dressed in camo, army fatigues. Not all of them, but the ones people... yeah, the ones people think of the most. And I think the Donkey Kong Country cartoon also did a lot of heavy sort of pushing that image into a lot of people's brains because it focused on the singular Cruncha and Clump.
Yeah.
Kind of the wacky duo partnered with King K. Rool in that cartoon. And so because of that image has really stuck with people. But what else do you do with that for the sequel? And they decided to... I guess, I mean, I don't really know the creative method that led them to just full-on embrace Kremling pirates, but I have to think it started with the Gangplank Galleon, which of course appeared in the first Donkey Kong Country game. It was what King K. Rool was sort of biding his time on, I guess sailing around the islands, waiting until he had to step in and try to stop the Kongs himself. But
yeah.
King K. Rool was of course stationed on the Gangplank Galleon, and the whole game builds up to the Gangplank Galleon getting closer to Donkey Kong Island. And then you reach it, and it's just the final boss fight. There's no actual world for the Gangplank Galleon in the first game, which I was disappointed with my first playthrough. I remember really looking forward to getting to explore this pirate ship, and then it just being like you just hard cut into the King K. Rool boss fight. And it's like, oh wait, the game's almost over. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no offense to Donkey Kong Country, which I love. Obviously, it had a profound impact on my life, but Chimp Caverns was kind of a weak final world.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, so I talked about this when we had Paul Makachek on the Kongversation the other week, but one of the things I loved about Donkey Kong Land was it let us explore the Gangplank Galleon just a little bit more. It had a couple of levels set on the Gangplank Galleon in the first world. It was still docked off the coast of the Congo jungle. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad we're at least getting a little bit more out of this. Not realizing that Donkey Kong Country 2 would be going all in on not just the Gangplank Galleon as an entire world, but pirate Kremlings as a whole.
Yeah, and like I'm thinking about my personal experience with the Gangplank Galleon as well. And again, I mentioned this before in previous videos where I said, like, I didn't know about DKC2 for the longest time until like 2005 or 6 or something. So all I had was the original DKC and Donkey Kong Land. But I remember seeing like previews on YouTube or like the Nintendo channel on the Wii where they were on Gangplank Galleon. And it was sort of like, it's like what you had, except it was like magnified by like 5 times. Like, Gangplank, they're on the Gangplank Galleon. How much did I miss? What is going on here?
In the live stream, Chris says, since the Gangplank Galleon sails to Donkey Kong Island, my headcanon is that K. Rool was off stealing bananas from somewhere else. And now he's arrived to collect the hordes the various world bosses have been guarding for him. And then he quotes K. Rool in an apocryphal quote here. Surely my larger than average beavers and my large drum full of snakes will have perfectly enacted my master plan.
I like that.
Yeah, maybe there's a whole separate story waiting to be told where K. Rool sailed up to Timbers Island or something. And
oh, that's true. There are bananas there.
There are, but there's bananas everywhere in the Rare Archipelago, Malik. But looking at the Gangplank Galleon in the first game, yeah, and you don't really get too many glimpses of it because it's just this tiny speck and it becomes a little bit larger, but it's still very small, like postage stamp size on the map screen. And then, of course, you see the deck, which, okay, let's just say the Gangplank Galleon doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you look at the actual structure of the levels in Donkey Kong Country 2 or even Donkey Kong Land. The rigging, the mast, the sails, it's nonsense if you try to break it down. And you try to square that away with what we saw in the first Donkey Kong Country where there's a ship deck that you fight King K. Rool on. It's like, well, okay, that ship deck doesn't really apply then if you're saying the Gangplank Galleon is actually the size of 20 aircraft carriers and, you know, has the equivalent of skyscrapers for its 17 mast. But in Donkey Kong Country, when you really examine it on the map screen, what amazes me is how close it is to what we would see and what would become cemented in Donkey Kong Country 2. Because even with the limitations of its size and resolution on the map screen, you can still see that they have the Kremling Jolly Roger intact on the sail. Even then, it's reversed. It's reversed from what we know it to be in Donkey Kong Country 2. But that's still the Kremling Jolly Roger. They had that design done by the time the game launched in 1994, which I think that's just amazing that little detail like wasn't retconned in with Donkey Kong Country 2. That was there from the start.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. You think they probably just were, when they were working on DKC 2, you think they were just like, why don't we just put this in DKC 1?
Well, no, I mean, it's been in DKC1 from the start before they even started work on DKC2. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, like they didn't start Donkey Kong Country 2 until Donkey Kong Country was shipped. I mean, they might have had ideas. If we do a sequel, maybe we could do this or that. But I don't know. That's just the little touches that really made me a Rare fan. You know, that dedication to. I call it lore. You can call it continuity. You can call it just consistency. But it really did make the world feel a little bit more real than what we would get from other Nintendo properties, especially during that time, where they would play fast and loose with game-to-game continuity. And like, you also have the figurehead, the golden Kremling head figurehead. Maybe it's supposed to be K. Rool, you know, but you have that golden Kremling figurehead clear as day on the Gangplank Galleon. In fact, you might not even know what it is in Donkey Kong Country until you go back from Donkey Kong Country 2 and you can clearly see, you know, the render of the Gangplank Galleon. So,
yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
so yeah, I really like the Gangplank Galleon as the flagship of the Kremling Pirates, and that's why I'm one of those who I kind of bristle at the idea, the notion that the Gloomy Galleon in Donkey Kong 64 is the sunken Gangplank Galleon, just because I'm not ready to say goodbye to the Gangplank Galleon. I want it to come back at some point, and we've already seen throughout Donkey Kong Country 2 that K. Rool has had previous ships that he's, you know, crashed, wrecked, sunk across Crocodile Isle. We see it in Crocodile Cauldron and Krem Key. So the Gloomy Galleon could be another early pirate ship that he just sank off the coast of Donkey Kong Island. It doesn't have to be the Gangplank Galleon. I know the Gangplank Galleon's hull was breached in Country 2. It was taking on water. But you can fix that. You can patch. You can bail.
Yeah, you can use like magic or whatever if you really want. If that really was the Gangplank Galleon, you could always just bring it back. Like, oh, I got
that's
magic
true.
or something.
That's true. Sea of Thieves has established a formula for that. Sea of Thieves has established that the merfolk can like rise your sunken ship. They can retrieve it from the seabed and fix it for you. So even if the Gloomy Galleon is the Gangplank Galleon, you know, it's still good. It's still seaworthy. It just needs a little love and care.
Mm-hmm. It's especially seaworthy because it's actually in the sea. But yeah, you can always take it out of the sea.
Daisabat says somehow the Gangplank Galleon returned. Yeah, and people loved when Palpatine came back. So why wouldn't they love this?
It's the same principle. Yeah, same thing.
So, moving beyond the flagship a little bit, and who actually inhabits the ship, why do Kremlings as pirates work so well? And I've spoken to the basic notion of the Kremlings quite a bit on the Kongversation, as well as the DKU lore tour on Kremlantis that people seem to like a whole lot more than the one I just did on Breaking the Fourth Wall. But reptilians just fit thematically in mythology, in folklore. They just fit as the natural antagonist of primates, be they apes, be they monkeys, be they humans. There's just something like about this competition for the planet, for resources. Like, who's going to be the dominant archetype? Is it going to be reptiles or is it going to be mammals? You know, dinosaurs to the rise of mammals, and, you know, conspiracy culture, talking about reptilians living underground, and I don't know, something about posing as George H.W. Bush. It's been a while since I've looked into that nonsense, but
lizard men.
Yeah, exactly. So the Kremlings just are the perfect counterpart to the Kongs, but when you take the Kongs, which are primates living on a mostly tropical island in a greater archipelago full of other islands, making their natural enemies be pirates on top of that, I feel like it's the natural evolution. It's the natural next step. How can we better define these reptilians who are the antagonists of the Kongs? Let's make them pirates.
Yeah, just everything just kind of falls into place. Like, you don't even have to think about it, honestly. And I think there's just a beauty to that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, really, because we do romanticize pirates in pop culture, especially, starting with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, Johnny Depp as this like romantic, albeit very, very filthy anti-hero, right? Yeah. But even before that, just the idea of hunting for pirate treasure and the freedom of the sea, there's always been this sort of sanding off the edges of pirates in pop culture, video games, and dumb holidays like Talk Like a Pirate Day. But,
yeah,
the actual historical record of piracy, they weren't really good folk, Malik. Maybe this is a controversial take, but they were actually pretty bad. They were a bunch of bad people.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah, because you had the plundering, which we kind of gloss over. It's like, oh, it's all good fun, just high sea hijinks. But
yeah,
you also had murder involved in that. You had assault. You had historical pirates involved with the slave trade, which doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Not all pirates were involved in the slave trade, but a fair amount were. And it's not good. Not good stuff. Very unsavory. No. And
yeah, it's pretty bad.
So when you're thinking about what would be good villains for the morally upstanding Kong family, reptilian pirates are just perfect. It just works so well. And, I like the Tiki Tak tribe. I like the Snowmads. But I always feel like, they really just nailed it with the second Donkey Kong Country game, didn't they? Like, they just reached this perfection that I feel like they've kind of been chasing since then and not really catching up to.
Because, like, the Snowmads, not to go off on the Snowmads, I'm sure they'll get their time in the sun and melt subsequently. But, like, Vikings are pirates, but they're not the first thing you think of when you think pirates,
Right. Yeah, the definition of piracy is far broader than what pop culture defines as a pirate. But our conceptions of pirates are the, again, dirty. They're very dirty pirates. They're not clean. They smell. The dirt. Yeah. They need haircuts and shaves and
vitamin C.
The scurvy's a bad thing, but we think of like the very specific band of criminals from the Age of Exploration, from this like we'll say 2 centuries, from the 1500s to the late 1700s, a little bit after that, but basically the bunch of seafaring criminals who would plunder ships going to and fro Europe, Africa, and the New World. And you get some Pacific pirates as well, and of course Mediterranean pirates. But our conception is Pirates of the Caribbean, there's a reason that evokes the most imagery. And there's the most stories in our, at least Western canon, about that. Because that is just kind of the tropes and the legends. That's where it all springs from. But Vikings are pirates in a sense. And I think the Snowmads were a good bunch of villains for that specific game. But here's the thing about the Kremlings, Malik. You could have made the Kremlings Vikings in that game, and it would have worked just as well.
Huh. I'm just thinking about them with big horned helmets, honestly, and breastplates, but...
I mean, Kasha in Donkey Kong 64.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I forget about him sometimes, but no, yeah.
But even if they had done that, even if Retros was able to and willing to bring back the Kremlings and Tropical Freeze, I still don't think Kremlings as Vikings would have had the same just one-to-one perfect connection that Kremlings as like Pirates of the Caribbean do.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about when you always say Pirates of the Caribbean, because I didn't watch Pirates of the Caribbean or go on like the Disney ride or anything until maybe the mid 2000s, but pirates were still a big part of like my life. And well, when I say a big part of, like, I knew what pirates were, and I, of the whole swashbuckling tropes and things like that, but I'm not sure where pirates started for me. But I just knew that pirates, especially the ones you described, were just cool.
I've talked about this before. I did not like pirates when I was a real young kid. I didn't get it. I didn't understand why it would hold my interest. Because again, as I said, just really stinky men. And
yeah.
Like, I associated pirates with things like Peter Pan, which didn't really hold my interest. And maybe it was my aversion to all things Disney that really kept me at arm's length from pirates, because the only time I would encounter pirates would be in Disney productions, pre-Pirates of the Caribbean. But it was Donkey Kong Country 2 that really made me understand the appeal of these like pop culture pirates. And I think that's through the prism of Greg Mayles, and the other people who worked on the game, of course. But Greg Mayles, when we met him for the first time at E3 2015, which is when Sea of Thieves was announced, we were like, oh my God, Greg Mayles, you're working on Sea of Thieves, right? And just talked a little bit about pirates and how he had a childhood fascination with pirates and was really the driving force to bringing them into Donkey Kong Country. And then from there, of course, they had the pirate version of Project Dream on the N64, which brought us Captain Black Eye. Even though it evolved into Banjo-Kazooie, Captain Black Eye would hang around on the periphery of the lore of Banjo-Kazooie. And that eventually all led to Sea of Thieves, in a sense. But then you also have all of these other references to pirates in the DKU as a result that continue to this day, and the Donkey Kong side of things and Playtonic. And but it was Donkey Kong Country 2 that made me, I think, truly understand why pirates are such a intriguing concept in our stories. And I didn't get it before. It took Donkey Kong to really make me understand. It's like, oh, okay, they can be more than just like Captain Hook. They can be more than just Treasure Island. You can make them a little bit more varied and a little bit more fun. And it's all about the spirit of adventure rather than just focusing on the poor hygiene of it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So I want to just focus on this episode. We're going to go down the list and we're going to talk about each individual pirate Kremling. And
good to me.
Various cohorts along the way, and what we really like about each one. And we'll also talk a little bit about the legacy, the enduring legacy of the Kremling cutthroats throughout the DKU. So,
alrighty then.
The first thing I want to address are, we talk about the 3 military Kremlings in Donkey Kong Country, which I assume you're talking about Critters, Clumps, and Crushes, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Everyone else is naked.
Yeah. Well, those 3 Kremlings came back in Donkey Kong Country 2, but they all got piratical rebrandings. And with Critters, they became 2 different variants. the standard critter who just, walk around and don't really do anything, but just,
Yeah. They just look like they're swimming through the air with their little arm motions.
they're not very effective soldiers. They just kind of try to like mall walk into Donkey Kong and Diddy.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Well, they've been replaced with Clomps, the stock standard Kremling in Donkey Kong Country 2. I'm going to say Donkey Kong Country 2, but I also mean Donkey Kong Land 2, of course. But I'm not going to say Donkey Kong Land 2 every single time because I don't feel like it's a mouthful. I don't feel like I need to. Clomps, of course, their big defining feature and the source of their name is that they're... In most renders, it's their left leg, but I guess they could be mirrored too. Their left leg has been amputated, and they have peg legs.
Yeah. Very striking.
Yeah, and we've talked about this quite a bit over the years on DK Fight, and we've had the debate. Are these critters who have naturally lost their legs through the course of battle, like getting a gorilla on top of your head and then falling a great distance, or getting their legs crushed by Donkey Kong, or did K. Rool just chop off their legs because he was all about the pirate theming, and he was just like, I've got to have some soldiers with peg legs. You and you come here.
I just want to talk.
Because I like both ideas. Both are kind of charming to me, that these could be critters. These could be critters who went into battle in Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong Land, lost a leg because, Diddy cartwheeled into them and they fell down an ice cavern. Or K. Rool is just that much of a sicko and was just like, aesthetically, I think you would look better without your left leg. Let me saw it off.
It's like, let me just do this. I'm a trained professional. I'm a scientist. Oh, wait, actually not yet. That's the next game.
That's the next game, right.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's twisted, but I like it.
The only thing that makes me pull back from K. Rool being that much of a sick fuck is that the actual design of Clomps, it looks like, and this could be like the scaling, the Kremling scales, but they almost look like they're covered in scars. Like, they've got just battle damage all over their arms and chest and head. And that makes me think, no, these are the critters who went through hell in Country and Land. And they bear, like, their entire bodies, the scars of Donkey and Diddy and, Rambi goring them.
Yeah.
But these are the critters who are back for round 2 or even round 3. And boy, they just look like they're like, this is it for them. Like, it's no wonder the critters like sat out Donkey Kong Country 3.
Yeah, they're like, we're done. We've served our time.
This is the level of degradation. They would just be heads in jars. They would be like Gruntilda in Nuts and Bolts, right?
Skeletons. Oh wait, no, that's the DK64 actually.
Yeah.
It just degrades with each game they're in.
What I really like about the thought process behind making the Kremling's pirates in this is they're like, okay, well, we'll make the standard critters Clomps with peg legs. But what about the critters who jumped? Because, there was no difference between critters who charge at you and critters who jump in Donkey Kong Country. Like, as far as, like, basic design goes, they were just critters. You would have color variations, but that's it. But
yeah,
with Donkey Kong Country 2, they're like, okay, well, you can't have really, effectively, a Clomp jumping at you if they have a peg leg. It wouldn't really look that, realistic. But what if
we give them 2?
We replace both legs with pogo sticks, effectively. And that's just
twisted.
it's twisted, and it's very, very creative. It's already taking a twist on a concept, and it's twisting it even further in the same game. And that gave us Kaboings, which great name.
I love the name. Yeah.
Great name, great design, great concept. I don't think the Donkey Kong Country 2 team gets enough credit from the like overall like larger non-Donkey Kong, non-rare like video game brain trust. The people who sit back and say, that game is a classic. Oh, that game has stellar game design. Oh, that game over there, that just does everything right. They don't really gaze upon Donkey Kong Country 2 and its brilliance enough.
I know. Yeah, definitely not. Because no one talks about Kaboing like we do.
Nobody talks about Kaboing like we do. And I think Kaboing is evidence that not only were the Donkey Kong Country 2 team a bunch of mad geniuses, but it is probably direct evidence that it's the greatest game of all time.
I won't argue with you there.
In the live stream, we're gonna be talking about Chris again because Chris is talking.
Yes.
Chris suggests that Clomps could be wearing hollow wooden legs to appease K. Rool, like large wooden stockings. And yeah,
interesting.
Like, maybe like 1 out of every 5 Clomps is conning K. Rool, and they're like, yeah, I went through the amputation, I did it. Look, I'm a Clomp now. Oh,
yeah, arr.
But then when they clock out at 5 o'clock, they slide it off, in the privacy of their own domicile. I
was going to say domicile.
Yeah, all right. Well, we got to drink whenever we think of the same word. I'm actually not drinking any alcohol, despite it being Talk Like a Pirate Day, because we did start this at 1 p.m. on the East Coast. So I've got a full work day ahead of me. I gotta write a news article about Dunk Dunk featuring ukulele.
Now, I was going to suggest something about the Clomps that I thought was really stupid, but since we're all shooting our theories out, I was going to say that maybe Clomps are critters, a subspecies of critters that are sometimes born with 1 or no legs.
Just like the Kremling source evolution goes a little bit askew. And it's just like a natural mutation that some critters are born without legs, and so they have to become Clomps. It's like, all right, you are enlisted in the Kremling cutthroats. You are now a Clomp because of the circumstances of your birth.
And you are a crockhead because you were just born without it, with just a head. Something like that.
They've got pretty realistic and accessible prosthetics these days. So you don't just have to go with the peg leg K. Rool. You could be providing these poor critters with some really advanced leg gear that could have them lead full able-bodied lives. You don't need to just
literally able-bodied.
Yeah, you don't need to put a peg on them anymore because, hey, this isn't the 1700s.
Yeah, give them robo legs with steel toe caps. See if DK and Diddy can handle those.
If the Kongs can get prosthetic golfing fingers in a Mushroom Kingdom, just think about the golfing legs they've got available.
I know. Come on now.
All right, well, moving on from the critter variants, the Clomps and the Kaboings, let's talk about what became of Clump. So Clump was, of course, the rotund, purplish-pink Kremling with the army helmet, so Diddy couldn't jump on him. But he had the big inviting belly that made you, the player, realize, oh, it's cool if Diddy rolls into him. because it's still a soft underbelly, literally, and Diddy can dispatch them that way. But what do you do with that concept when you're rebranding as pirates? Well, you got to be a little bit different. And so with Clump, they turned him into cannon. And he has a handheld cannon that he shoots projectiles at you. The innovation of cannon being that he can shoot horizontally, but he can also shoot vertically from above. And surprisingly versatile as a concept, I would say.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. Quite the upgrade.
I really appreciated the instruction manual. If you were on the fence about some of these Kremlings being the same as the Donkey Kong Country Kremlings, just with different clothing, the Country 2 manual did specifically say, it looks like Clump can shoot. And I thought that was the greatest thing as a kid because it was a validation of the theories I was already forming in my head looking through the instruction manual when I got the game that early December evening. I was just like studying every little single solitary inch of that instruction manual like it was stone tablets divine from on high. And I was like, that looks like Clump. And then sure enough, the text said it was Clump. And I was just like, yes, all of my theories are correct. And they will be forever and ever. Because Nintendo and Rare say they are.
Yeah, I would have gone gaga over this if I had DKC2 as a child.
I'm sorry.
But, I mean, it makes me go gaga right now. Like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's just Clump. And I guess, like, you know, his skin color is a little different, but it's still... Well, actually, no, it's about the same. I'm looking at renders of Clump and Cruncha right now, and yeah, they're about the same. But yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah, like, I think people think of the more, like, pinkish Clump from Donkey Kong 64, and they also think about, of course, General Clump from the cartoon, who was just green. So
yeah,
there's really no set color pattern to Clump. That's a broad consensus. But the also great thing about canon is the fact that canon isn't just an obstacle. Canon can also be used to further trajectory in gameplay because cannon will sometimes shoot barrels you can jump on. And really, really versatile as an enemy. I don't think people give
definitely
cannon enough credit. Yeah. I just, and it's also just really fun having this big burly character holding a portable cannon.
Yeah, I haven't seen portable cannons in much stuff, honestly. Why is no one doing that more often?
Because it's dangerous and stupid.
Pirates are dangerous and stupid.
Yes, I know. I'm not saying like anything about this makes sense. Like, oh, okay, yeah, you've got two pogo sticks for legs. Logical. But yeah, I think you don't see it because you can go a little bit more slapsticky with Donkey Kong Country versus a more realistic depiction of pirates.
You know, I also watch, there's this anime called One Piece, which is all about pirates. One of my favorite things of all time.
I don't watch One Piece, but I've been around enough that I know of One Piece, Malik. You don't have to explain what One Piece is.
It was going to be a gamble. I wasn't sure. But yeah, no, it's a wacky pirate thing, and it also delves with a bunch of serious stuff. But I don't think I've seen a portable cannon in One Piece. And it's like, why? That's so cool, though.
Honestly, I'm thinking about it now. Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves. Like, that would be right at home in Sea of Thieves.
I don't understand.
Yeah, why not Rare? Why not Rare?
Yeah.
Add it to the list. Yeah, you scared? Oh, he's real scared of the portable cannons in a video game.
Oh, he did this 20-some years ago.
You're adding a harpoon gun next season. I think you can have a portable cannon in there and a anthropomorphic stopwatch in there.
They're scared to put him in the game too.
Not like a talk like a. It's not a talk like a pirate day unless I get that in there somewhere. So yeah, it's a fun concept, and it also helps prolong the pirate theming because once you move past the Gangplank Galleon, you still have a few shipwrecks along the shore of Crocodile Isle. But the way Crocodile Isle is designed, it just goes up, right? So once you get past the swamp, it makes like keeping the pirate theming, the pirate imagery a little bit harder because you no longer have shipwrecks. You no longer really have the proximity to the sea. And so having cannons there in later worlds shooting cannonballs at you, I think that really helps sell the illusion that you're still in this swashbuckling adventure, even if you're in a haunted forest that has an elevation that's higher than Donkey Kong Island, or you're in an old like monarch's castle, or you're on a flying helicraft like high in the sky. Or you're riding
roller coasters.
Right. They do a good
I know
job.
They're not there, but yeah.
Yeah, they do a good job of seeding the pirate stuff in World 4 onward, even though you're kind of technically past it all by that point.
Yeah, definitely.
The third and final returning Kremling. There are, of course, other returning baddies in Donkey Kong Country 2, Zingers being the most prominent, but just talking about the pirate Kremlings themselves, the third and final returning one is what Cruncha becomes, because Crunchas became Crunchas. And these are the least dramatic evolution, because there's a substantial difference between critters and clumps and kaboings, at least visually, and a gameplay difference between clumps and cannons. But Crunchas to Crunchas, it's basically just Cruncha designed like a swabby, like just a sailor, a lower ranked sailor on a ship, wearing a too tight tank top and very, very tight pants, showing off their belly, wearing a bandana over their head. And they've got the little anchor tattoo, which I appreciate. It's a nice little detail. But
yeah,
they're still just big, burly dudes. They're a little bit goofier than Cruncha. And they've also like changed the proportion a little bit. So their arms seem to be bigger. Arms and torso were bigger compared to the rest of their body, which Cruncha did not have that proportion variance.
Yeah, the one thing that kills me when, of course, they say that this is just Cruncha, but Cruncha has those big spikes on his head, and I'm like, where did they go? I guess, did they get lobbed? Is it like hair? Did he cut them off? Or can they like fold into the bandana? I think about this stuff.
I always took those spikes to be hair, personally speaking. We know Kremlings can grow hair sometimes.
Yes.
Other times they have to wear toupees, like K. Rool apparently does when he's Baron K. Roolenstein, at least in the in-game sprite. But or maybe the render had hair. One of them had hair, but maybe they both did. I don't know. I haven't looked at a render of Baron K. Roolenstein in close to 3 weeks, Malik. What am I supposed to? How am I supposed to retain this knowledge? But
you're cracking up.
I am. Cruncha. They're just a little bit goofier and less intimidating, at least visually, than Cruncha was. Complete with the tongue hanging out the side of their mouth. I think they're supposed to just read as generally dumber versions of Cruncha. Like Cruncha was fairly high ranking in the Kremling crew. Well, I feel like these are Crunchas who washed out, maybe, who like were just too dumb for the military, and so they were scrubbing the decks of the Gangplank Galleon.
As best as they could.
Now, of course,
probably with their tongues, actually.
There is a gameplay difference with Cruncha versus Cruncha, where if Diddy and Dixie attempt to jump on Cruncha, then Cruncha gets very angry and turns bright red and becomes temporarily invulnerable. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
He is scarier. That's the funny thing, where it's like he doesn't look as intimidating, at least from the render. But yeah, he's definitely scarier than Cruncha.
Well, Cruncha, of course, Cruncha, of course, was devised to be the Kremling baddie that just Diddy couldn't dispatch with physically unless he had a barrel or an animal buddy. Yeah. Right. And that was the, I don't want to call it gimmick, but that was the idea behind Cruncha, was this one's too tough for Diddy. But when you have a game where it's Diddy and Dixie, comparable size, then they had to do something a little bit different, because then it would just be, well, this is just the invulnerable Kremling and you can't do anything unless you have a barrel or animal buddy. And so you can take out Cruncha with the team throw attack, which I really like. Right. Like, that's enough velocity to knock him out. But then if he's red and angry, then that's too much for the team throw. So I do appreciate that difference. And, you know, it makes sense. They're a little bit dumber, so they're a little bit quicker to anger than the more polished Crunchas of the armed forces.
If someone lobbed a chimpanzee at me, I'd probably get killed too.
It depends how big the primate is, right?
Yeah.
Like, if it's Kitty Kong coming at me, yeah, that might kill me.
Yeah, that would probably kill me.
If it hits me at the right spot in my neck or head, then yeah.
Yeah, just even a well-placed rock could do me in, but yeah, it depends on where you're hitting the person and, you know, the speed of it and the weight. But yeah, I think they find a place.
I do like to think I fine-tune my body to anticipate and welcome primate attacks, because if a monkey comes hurtling at me, I'm going to be like, oh, sweet, it's a monkey. And it's just going to make me healthier, given my years of conditioning to want to be hugged by monkeys and gorillas and whatnot.
But not humans.
No, please. No, especially, no. I mean, after COVID, no, stay away from me.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no humans here.
Days of Matt says anime stuff is more likely to be in Sea of Thieves than TT. Well,
dang.
Yeah, they've had like a One Piece reference with the hat, the Luffy hat. So
Luffy,
is that how you say it?
It's Luffy. Yeah.
I've never heard it said out loud. I've only seen it spelled, like, written. So
yeah. No, I get you.
It's one of the,
you get that one for free.
It's one of those words like I've never heard. I've only read, and so I always thought it was Luffy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, they're both equally stupid, but Luffy is just. But yeah.
Chris is also objecting to our canon discussion and saying they need portable cannons in Sea of Thieves, saying they have cannon rowboats in Sea of Thieves. Yes, they have cannon rowboats, but that's also, like, that requires, like, a boat, right? Yeah. Like, I want, and it can be a very rare item, but I just want a cannon you can find and pick up. And, obviously that's overpowered, so maybe it breaks apart after, like, you fire it once.
Or the recoil sends you, like, reeling back, like, 20, 30 feet every time you shoot it.
There you go. Like, the recoil could maybe, like, take half your health, right? So you can't just spam it. You'll die. Malik, we're doing it. We're designing a game right now.
I know, right? Someone needs to hire us.
Yeah, that's the quickest way to make a game unprofitable is to put, at the very least,
hire me.
No, I believe in you, Malik, but if you put me on the game, I'll be like, well, first of all, where are you going to hide the goldfish? There's like, well, we don't even have a game. We don't even have a game yet. What are you talking about? Hide the goldfish. First of all, where are you going to hide the goldfish?
And it's like, how many times are you going to make him tap the glass? This is a trick. Right. I'm not going to give you the answer. You have to answer this correctly or you're fired out the door. Come on now. This is serious business.
I know you hired me, but now I'm seeing if you're worthy enough to work with me. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all I ask. Goldfish. That's it. Then we can get with the serious stuff after we get the goldfish in the game, before anyone forgets.
Speaking of orange things, let's
cool. That's a
let's
cool
talk
segue.
about one of my favorite Kremlings in any DKU game, Klinger.
I like this guy. Just his animation lives, what do the kids say? Rent free in my brain. Just climbing up. I love it.
Old man Malik over here trying to think of what the youth say.
I've always been that way.
I know. I really hate that I was once upon a time like precocious and I could like say all of these references that were beyond my years and people would be like, wow, that kid is just so wizened and so like beyond his own time. And now those same references just make me look even older than I actually am.
Well, you mean, what was it? You still get carded when you go to the beer store. So, easy come, easy go.
The beer store. Yeah, that's what we call it here.
Beer store. I don't drink, can you tell? Actually,
anyway.
you might not be able to.
No, you're
stupid.
you're doing a live conversation for Talk Like a Pirate Day, Malik. I don't know you don't drink. This is the behavior of someone who's like 3 sheets to the wind right now.
Yeah.
So Klinger is an original Kremling who doesn't have a Donkey Kong Country counterpart. If there is a counterpart in a previous Donkey Kong game, it would be the Slippas that are sliding down the ropes of the Gangplank Galleon in Donkey Kong Land.
That's a stretch, but I like it.
I mean, functionally, they serve the same sort of role as an obstacle on the rigging of the Gangplank Galleon and other pirate ships or chains later on in the game. But yeah, Klingers, I love that they're orange Kremlings. I love that they established, hey, Kremlings can be orange too. Why not?
Yeah. It's great. It's so good. Just looking at him staring at me, the render right now. It's just, look at that. Look at all those colors. That is so cool.
He's like a little bit more wiry than the other Kremlings. He's, got the green bandana and like, I have a couple bandanas just wrapped around his waist, and he's got the knife, the dagger in his mouth.
He's got ears.
That's weird.
Human ears.
I mean, Kremlings could have human ears. Some Kremlings could evolve with human ears. They are humanoid crocodile people. So.
I know, but like, why these guys in particular? Only these guys.
You have to have good ears if you're going to be on like the rigging all day. You've got to like keep your ears open for like oncoming like ship fire, cannon fire, muskets.
I suppose so, but that doesn't make it any less like, ooh, yikes. I never realized it.
They evolved ears to hear the far off cry of gulls so they know when land is near.
I was going to say they evolved ears just because they thought earrings would look cool, but yeah, the earrings do look nice.
Yeah, they do. They do. Of course, the most defining characteristic of this game, if you yourself have ears and working hearing, is hearing their jubilant squeals when they slide down the ropes and chains that they climb on, because they go wee,
woo, woo, woo. I just thought that was just the noise of them whooshing down, but you think it's them going like that?
I've always taken it to be them just so enjoying their job. I
like that. It's cute.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that, you ideally, like, some people just have to work to make a living. They don't get to have a job that brings them contentment or fulfillment or joy. I think clingers have it because the thing they love more than anything else, sliding down ropes.
Yeah, at least until they get taken out by a barrel of explosive force. Usually with dynamite in it.
That's the danger.
That's the only way to kill them.
Well, you can jump on them too if you get lined up just right.
All right. That's tricky though.
That is tricky, but it's satisfying when you do pull it off.
Yeah. I was like, oh snap! I didn't know I could do that.
I think these might be my favorite original Kremling. Maybe my favorite Kremlings in the game. Just from their design to, I always imagine they have very calloused hands.
Yeah, I mean the scales already probably help with that, but yeah, they probably have some sort of like carpal tunnel or something doing the same motion over it. And rope burn too.
Well, I'm saying like the rope burn would give way to calluses so they don't get rope burn anymore.
I see. I guess they're just numb to the pain or something.
Yeah. Like that's a big part of their training is for the first month is just developing those calluses so that they can withstand the rigors of sliding down ropes, vines, and chains.
I like their style.
I do too. If I had any like figure or toy of any Kremling from this game, I think I would want to have a clinger. It would be fun to like hang one from your like rear view mirror in your car.
Yeah. I'd be like, that's a dude I would want to hang with. He seems like an upstanding guy.
By the way, here's a little trivia for you. A little Donkey Kong Country 2 trivia for you, Malik.
Yeah.
So, according to the Game Boy Advance Remakes opening cutscene, where we actually saw the abduction of Donkey Kong play out in real time, clingers are the ones who apparently lifted Donkey Kong up into the flying croc when he was kidnapped off the Congo beach.
That's pretty cool.
So we don't like see it in action, but we see a bunch of critters slide down ropes from the flying croc. And another Kremling, which we'll talk about a little bit later, actually does the attacking for the sleeping Donkey Kong. But I think the clingers were supposed to surmise that they then lifted Donkey Kong up into the flying croc.
That is pretty cool. I was going to say, it's like, where were these guys in the first game? They probably could have gotten the job done a long time ago.
I think they work exclusively on the Kremling pirate ships.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they're fitted for the job aesthetically.
Yeah. In the Game Boy Advance remake of the first game, we saw the theft of the banana horde, and they also utilized ropes, but it was just critters who used the ropes in that game, so...
Yeah, no, that's lame.
I know, what? You're a critter. You don't have more than one thing. You can't walk and also use a rope. That's invalid. You only have one thing. You can mole walk into your enemy or you can jump. That's it. Mm-hmm.
Just for that, I'm cutting off one of your legs.
We're getting some weird comments in the live stream. Chris says, would you accept a massage from a clinger? And,
I don't know if I would even shake his hand.
Giga Strike says, what kind of eyes is he giving me? If you're going to accept the massage.
His eyes.
I don't think they would give good massages. I think given the fact that they're always grasping something, they would give a very particular kind of massage. Very, very illicit, and I don't want to talk about that because Talk Like a Pirate Day is for the family, Malik.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't talk about it.
The live stream is trying to filth up our podcast, and I'm not going to have it. Not
Disgusting.
Today. Not on this holy day.
Not on this holy day of unshaven, unkempt criminals.
Smelly Johnny Depp's. The thing about Johnny Depp is, Malik, I don't know if you know this, he apparently stinks in real life.
I think his personality also stinks. Like, I won't go off the rails too much, but there's just a joke that goes in my head where it's like, do you remember when Johnny Depp destroyed a hotel room on TV or something? And what was it? Yeah, some guy asked him, it's like, you messed up that hotel on TV. What was that about? And then Johnny Depp goes, in my defense, the hotel made the first move. What? That's what he said. Apparently, that's what he said.
Yeah, no, like he apparently has a legendary BO in Hollywood. little scuttlebutt there for you, Malik. Let's move on to clobbers and kabooms.
Ooh, yeah, I like these guys.
Now, these are maybe the most enduring of the original Kremlings in Donkey Kong Country 2, just because they came back later on.
You endure because you came back once or twice. But that's cool. No, I like these guys.
But by DKU standards, that means a lot.
Oh, yeah, no.
You've been in another game that wasn't like a handheld adaptation of this one game? Oh, wow. You're legendary.
You got longevity. You got tenure.
Yeah. You were in 3 games like 25 years ago. Wow.
You're a Goomba. You're basically a Goomba.
Let me write a Wikipedia article for you right now and argue.
That's enough for me to work with.
Yeah, I'll argue with the mods to try to bring it down. Clobbers and Kaboom. The pirate theming is there. It's a little bit looser because all they do is hide in barrels and TNT barrels. Which, of course, barrels are just a common aspect of Donkey Kong games, like sans piracy, sans pirate ships, old wooden ships. I know barrels are an aspect of those themes as well, but barrels would exist even if you never brought that stuff into the Donkey Kong franchise. So the fact that they hide in barrels and TNT barrels, okay, but also that's just Donkey Kong. That's just the Donkey Kong series. They do have earrings, though. So
yeah, and they got ears too. Freaks.
They've got little small ears, which suggests to me that all Kremlings have ears, but unless you actually pierce them, they never stick out far enough for you to notice.
Yeah, if Kremlings can have ears, I can't see why some can't be born with appendages now, honestly.
or without appendages, yeah.
Yeah. But I also like the design, like, for some reason for Donkey Kong, especially the early renders in particular, I always like the bandage and the little black eye. That's something that I think of when I think Donkey Kong. Because, I don't know. There's just something about, like DKC 1 and 2. I feel like that imagery is just there and just various little things, like a little bandage and Diddy when he gets banged up, like the black eye. It's like, yeah, that's Donkey Kong when they get hurt. So I like that here.
Yeah, it's also just a lovely little detail because it really does a lot of heavy lifting for these characters in your imagination, because the act of having to constantly run into your enemies, your foes, hide in barrels, and then you jump up and you're like, I'm going to just ram you constantly inside this wooden receptacle, right? That would that would take a toll on your body and your health, because you're just constantly like hurtling yourself against things. Even from the safety of the barrel, that would still hurt.
What about the kabooms, though?
Yeah, that makes a little bit less sense, but they're just a recolor of clobbers, so...
Do they know that they're in a TNT barrel? I know they're red, but...
They have to know. They have to, and they have to be okay with blowing themselves up.
I guess.
Maybe like a kaboom hiding in the TNT barrel. Like, maybe this isn't their first go-around. Like, maybe it's not just this, like, a lethal kamikaze suicide bomber. Like, maybe, like, they can survive their first or second explosion. And so the black eye and the bandage are just the, like, resultant burns from their initial kaboom, if you will.
Yeah. Okay, that makes that I like that. I can dig it.
Sure, let's go with that. But again, from a gameplay perspective, such a great idea that you would have barrels that turn against you, right? And like, you can't trust every single barrel in the game. That some barrels, some TNT barrels, they're going to start attacking you. It's very much like taking the concept of the poison mushroom in Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels and running with that. Like, you have to be on alert. And of course, then you jump on a clobber, you jump on a kaboom, and then you can then just use them as a functioning barrel or TNT barrel. It's just great. It's such a fun way to take the core concepts of the first Donkey Kong Country game and expand them and make them more varied. And doing it with a fun character, too.
Yeah, like I mentioned it in my DKC trilogy video a while back, but I said, like, yeah, not even the barrels are safe in Crocodile Isle, so it's like you're always on edge. I remember just playing through the game, and every other time it's like, there's someone in that barrel. It's like, I swear to God, if it's another one of those things, I'm going to kill him and throw him over the edge just because he's taking me off.
It's one reason, even though I like the Donkey Kong Country 3 Kremlings, it's one reason why their Country 3 equivalents never worked as well, because they colored their barrels so they are baddies. Like, they're in green barrels, they're in red barrels, and you're just, or purple barrels in some cases, and you're just like, okay, I know what you are. You're not going to trick me.
It's a nice try, guy. Now you die.
The other great thing about clobbers is the escalating difficulty, because you just have the regular green clobbers that just run into you and can push you a little bit. Maybe they'll push you into a pit, or push you into another enemy or obstacle. But then as you go on, then you have the yellow clobbers, where they will not only push you, they will actually steal bananas from your banana tally. So not even the bananas you've collected are safe. And then the extreme elevation, the extreme escalation of the danger, the gray clobbers that will steal from your life tally, which is one of the cruelest things, right? Because it doesn't cause you to lose a life in the traditional sense where, oh, I've died and now I have to start back from the beginning of this level or from the checkpoint. It's, I'm still in this level, but my life meter, my life tally, my accumulated extra lives, they're being lost.
Yeah, it's like, how did they do that? How are you doing this and I'm not dead? Like, you're taking life from me.
Well, you're taking the balloons, the physical balloons, which Retro did a good job of establishing how the balloons actually work, like physically carrying the Kongs back into the level, like trying to make some sort of sense out of what Rare laid down with them. But this is, the time where we see, like, physically the balloons leaving the Kongs, and then they don't have those balloons to carry them back into the level. And it's one of the most stressful things in Donkey Kong Country 2 to be cornered by a gray clobber with those red eyes. And like, oh my God, like, I'm losing all of my lives and I've got to get out of this or I'm going to be screwed. I'm going to have a game over. I spent all that time in Pirate Panic collecting all those lives, all that time at the bonus bonanza, earning all those lives, and now it's all going down the drain because I got in a bad position.
No, they freaked me out the first time, and I think I could be wrong on this, but aren't they only found in the Lost World, the gray ones?
I forget, Malik, because it gets a little bit intertwined because, of course, the Lost World is accessed one per level from Clubba's kiosk. So I associate like later, like Lost World levels with just the later worlds in the game. And so like I know they are found in the Lost World. Yeah. But I can't remember if they're also found in K. Rool's Keep anywhere, like Castle Crush or.
But I'm thinking Castle Crush. Yeah.
I also, it was, I'm not as married to this as I used to be, but when I was a kid, it was my headcanon that gray clobbers were actually rock crocs because they looked like they were like stony and they had those glowing red eyes like rock crocs had from Donkey Kong Country. And they freaked me out just as much. So
my headcanon was, oh, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, so I thought they could be rock crocs who are in the clobber division. I'm not as married to that anymore, just because I realize like there's nothing to really support that. But as a kid, I really liked that notion.
I had a headcanon that the gray ones were like undead clobbers because they took your lives away. That's what I always thought, because they got the red eyes and they take your lives. Like, these guys must be like zombies,
or like succubi, or like, you know, they show up in night and they like steal your life force, your essence. They're energy vampires, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
I like that too. Yeah.
I love clobbers, kabooms of all sorts, and one of Donkey Kong 64's good moves, good decisions, was bringing them back.
Yeah, I liked seeing them, and some of them are huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, the scale in any N64 rare game is always a little bit wonky.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, working with polygons and, like, it's, of course, a trope in Banjo-Kazooie where Banjo and Kazooie are smaller than anything else in their world. But, yeah, it's just...
That's true.
You always have to kind of squint when it comes to scale in any of these games, like K. Rool being smaller than Diddy in Donkey Kong Land, for example.
Yeah, no, I understand that one, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got some comments. We got some comments in a live stream. I'm not going to be reading the spam, but Daisamat backs me up, says, according to Mario Wiki, they mostly just appear in later K. Rool's Keep levels and Lost World levels. So, Greg...
So even the Wiki isn't 100% sure.
They mostly, you know, yeah,
mostly.
That's not really only Wiki language there, Mario Wiki, but Mario Wiki is very trustworthy, so
yeah.
You know. We've got Chris saying, you're right, that they always felt undead to him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Validation from
and also says,
people.
N64 rare games work on variable scales. GameCube rare games work on general scales.
I wish I could have fought general scales. We talked about this earlier, but I played through Star Fox Adventures, and it sucks I didn't get to fight scales.
So Malik just played Star Fox Adventures for the very first time. We chatted about it like 5 minutes before we went live. And I was like, what do you think? What do you think about Star Fox Adventures? Because, you know, Star Fox Adventures is my 10th favorite video game of all time.
Yeah.
I love it. Despite its flaws, I really am charmed by it. And, you know, Malik, you said you liked everything but the gameplay, which fair. Yeah, I get that. I do. But yeah, I think that's a common complaint, a common criticism is General Scales is built up pretty well as a villain. And the fact that he just like has an oopsie daisy and falls over and then that's it. That's it. He's done.
Oops,
he's kind of
Andros.
It's kind of pathetic a little bit. And I understand why. I understand like I like the Andros twist. I think the Andros twist is really great once you go back and you realize how they were seeding it through the game. If you're not paying attention, then the Andros twist feels like it comes out of nowhere, but they actually do a good job of building up to it. But I also like Palpatine coming back in Rise of Skywalker, so I'm probably an idiot.
I feel like if they did Scales and Andros, it would have been pretty cool, but General Scales, I feel like, is an alternate universe. I feel like him and K. Rool would get along for a little bit before one of them stabbed each other in the back.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
where
they're both pirates.
K. Rool would hate Andros because Andros is a monkey man.
Yeah. See, it all comes together.
It does.
They knew what they were doing.
Alpha and Omega, Donkey Kong Country to Star Fox Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, my other favorite original Kremling. I like all the Kremlings in this game. What am I talking about? Why am I trying to, pit them against each other? Because the truth is, yes, Klinger is probably my favorite, but I just got done saying how much I love Clubbers and Kabooms. And I'm going to say how much I love the next Kremling as well. Cutlass. Hell yeah, Cutlass. Let's talk about Cutlass. So not only was Cutlass my introduction to the word Cutlass, because when you're a young kid, you're like, oh, sword. And, I had Ninja Turtles growing up, so the term katana was introduced to my vocabulary, but generally I just said sword. Leonardo uses a sword.
Yeah.
I think I only got very, actually, when people, like my parents would say Donatello fought with a stick, and I was like, it's a bow staff?
A bow staff?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's like, because Donatello was my favorite, and I always had to big him up a little bit, because I was like, not only is he a brilliant inventor, Mom and Dad, but he fights with a bow staff, not a stick.
Mm-hmm.
Because you always felt kind of... Yeah. You always felt kind of defensive because, of course, Leonardo had a very sharp weapon. Raphael had the little sharp weapons. Michelangelo had swinging sticks, nunchucks, and that was, badass. You could, stem off those. Swinging nunchucks, that's very, very arousing. But...
imitatable.
Yeah. But with Donatello, my favorite... He just had a piece of wood, and so you're always just trying to, sell it more than it was. It's a bow staff. Get it right.
They've touched upon this in later ones. I won't get too off topic, but one of the more recent ones, he's got a scientific bow staff that he tricked out with all these cool gadgets and stuff, because he realized he couldn't get far with just a regular stupid stick. But it's cool, yeah.
I understand that, and it makes sense for the character, but I also don't like that at the same time. It's like the bow staff is a weapon of somebody who knows what they're doing. They have confidence in their own skill.
Oh, it's called the tech bow. That's what I was going to say. That's the
tech bow. Okay.
The tech
bow. Not to be confused with tie bow.
No, I was about to say it's am I thinking that right? So I had to look it up. Yeah, that's the tech bow. Yeah.
But Cutlass, another great design. I think this is Steve Mails, but I think I ascribe most of these designs to Steve Mails, and I know Steve Mails didn't do all of the work on the characters in Donkey Kong Country 2, so I don't want to say it's Steve Mails. The only reason I say it's Steve Mails is this archetype of the youngish, kid-looking Kremling coming back in with this ridiculous gimmick. Was for I think the one Kremling he designed in Donkey Kong Country 3 was Copter. And Copter, of course, very much looks like Cutlass. But Cutlasses are, they look like kid Kremlings. I don't know if they are supposed to be kids, but they are very young. And they are very small in stature. And the big... I keep saying gimmick, and I always say gimmick, and I want to be clear, whenever I say gimmick, I don't mean gimmick as a bad thing, because I tend to associate the word gimmick with something that's cheap and tawdry, like empty calories. Oh, it's gimmick. Yeah. But gimmick in this case is a good thing, because Cutlass's gimmick is small Kremling, big swords. Wields 2 of them, in fact, and will come charging at the Kongs and will slice them down, and then because he's so small and so weak, he gets them stuck in the ground and can't get them out. And that means Cutlass is vulnerable during that brief window of time. So then you can stomp on Cutlass. And again, brilliant game design.
Heck yeah.
When people have these debates about Donkey Kong Country enemies versus Super Mario enemies, one of the common criticisms towards Donkey Kong Country is the Donkey Kong Country baddies aren't very clear on how you can defeat them. They don't communicate naturally, visually, to the player how you dispatch them. And I say, look at Donkey Kong Country 2's baddies, because I think all of them do.
I think so too, yeah. The more I think about it, they all have something clear about them, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and it's always done in a way that supports the theme. And I think it's just, there's something so fun about this character. And again, this goes back to the instruction manual, which said that Cutlass ordered these off like late night TV, like an infomercial or a shopping channel or something, which isn't as common. You know, that was a trope in the 1990s. Nobody buys stuff like that through shopping channels, through infomercials anymore. It's, you know, Cutlass in 2024 would buy these off Etsy or something,
or Amazon,
or Facebook Marketplace or something. Yeah, but it's still just such a nice little bit of world building, of contextualizing this ridiculous character. Like a kid Kremling who is overcompensating for his size by having swords that are way too big for him to wield.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a little bit more lore trivia for you, Malik.
Let's see if I know this one.
Okay, so clingers were the ones who pulled Donkey Kong up into the flying croc, according to the Donkey Kong Country 2 remake on the GBA. Cutlasses are the ones who physically attacked Donkey Kong while he was relaxing in his beach chair.
I love that. It's like Diddy and Dixie can take these guys out, but Donkey Kong, when he's just, you know, chilling, he's like, oh, no, not even, he can't even defend himself against a Cutlass. That's great.
Well, here's also the dark implication of that. Donkey Kong was not only taken off guard, but he was also hacked at with these giant swords. Like, he must have been bleeding out quite a bit when the clingers dragged him into the flying croc. Like, how did they get the drop on Donkey Kong? They gave him a bunch of little cuts all over his body, and he got all woozy from the blood loss.
I thought maybe they looked like, since we didn't actually see it, I don't care if it's E-rated, we didn't see it, but I like to think they were like plastic swords or something, but, you know, still did the job.
See, I think if you ever shaved Donkey Kong, like waxed off his fur, you would see all the little scars he's got. Not just from that, but from his myriad adventures over the years. But like, oh yeah, here, you see this, like, this scar right here? That's the time Sonic the Hedgehog punched me in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Right there.
And this scar is when I punched Sonic the Hedgehog, but his spines were out.
Anyway, yeah. Also, here's something I want to put out in the universe. Just ask you, but ask our audience. Maybe ponder it. Is Cutlass supposed to be a pun? Here's my thinking.
What's the pun?
Cut, space, lass. Like a lad or lass, like a young child who cuts you. Now, given the history of like automatically, neutrally assigning a male gender to any unknown character in a video game in the 1990s or the 2000s, like if you just see a character, unless it's got lipstick or wears pink or has like, you know, long hair, you're going to be like, oh,
Ellie the elephant.
or well, but yeah, Ellie was specifically called out as a her, so we knew it was, you know, we knew her pronouns. So, but there was just this kind of default thinking among creators and gamers during the time that it's a boy, that you know, its gender is a male, and that's the only thing that keeps me away from that pun, because it would be cut lad then, and then the pun doesn't make sense.
And we all know that Donkey Kong Country, the Kremlings already have a bunch of cut lads, as the kids might say.
Of course, we would have very specific, like feminine Kremlings in Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, and of course.
Krems?
Yeah, femlings, yeah. And Barrel Blast / Jet Race also reintroduced kid Kremlings in that game because we had Kip and Cass.
Right.
A Kremling lass, you see?
Yes. And what's Kip? A Kremling? I don't know.
I think it's like
a
Kremling pipsqueak, right? Like
Pipsqueak.
Yeah, not to be confused with Pipsy, who was just a pipsqueak who was a mouse.
Yeah.
Hence, squeak. So many puns, so much wordplay. Now, there's also another version of Cutlass in the game who don't wield swords, but they love to spend their time riding the roller coasters of Kremland. They are Clanks, which are effectively the version of Crash from the first Donkey Kong Country game, not to be confused with Crash Bandicoot, or one of the initial names for Crunch in Diddy Kong Racing. But Crash was the Kremling who rode the mine carts in Donkey Kong Country and served as an obstacle on them in the 2 minecart levels there. But Clanks, they serve effectively the same role on the roller coaster stages in Donkey Kong Country 2. Well, the ones in Kremland, they don't appear in Haunted Hall. But Clank, just a kid riding the little skull carts. I like them. They're just recolored cutlasses, but still, I like that little attention to detail. Is if these, like, what do Kremling kids do all day if they're not actually, like, enlisted full time in the Kremling Cutthroats or the Kremling crew? They go to school. Wrinkly's trying to educate them in Kong College, but yeah, they would be at Crazy Kremland. Why not?
Yeah, like average children. If you're not in school, you're riding roller coasters, apparently.
Right, yeah. So, and of course, as I said, the tradition of little kid Kremlings would kind of continue on, spiritually at the very least, with arguably Copter in Donkey Kong Country 3, although I don't think he's supposed to be as young. He's not coded as young as Cutlasses and Clanks. But Kasha in Donkey Kong 64 would be another play on the character where it's a little Kremling with a big weapon. And then, of course, Kip and Cass in Barrel Blast / Jet Race.
Yeah.
Daisamat is still looking at Mario Wiki for us. Thank you. Daisamat says the manual refers to Cutlasses as he. But I thought they were girls too until 2 minutes ago when I checked Mario Wiki. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's move on to Crook. Speaking of puns, by hook or by crook, we've got Crook, the Kremlings with hooks.
I like this dude.
Yeah,
I feel like I've been saying that a lot, but it's genuine.
There's a reason I wanted to do this for Talk Like a Pirate Day this year, just because I like all of these characters. There's not a bad one in the bunch. I mean, they're all bad, which is why I love them.
Yeah.
But there's not like a concept that misses. I think these are all just spectacular enemy designs. They serve their role in the gameplay just perfectly, and they're just fun to theorize and speculate about. And what I love about the Kremling pirates is most of that speculation is, how did they lose this limb? And with Crook, just like Kaboing is missing both legs, Crooks are missing both of their hands.
My theory grows ever stronger, or the appendages and the subspecies.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Crook, right, which might help argue against Kaboings and Clomps being critters with battle damage, with war wounds. Crooks do not have an analog in Donkey Kong Country. They don't have that counterpart because they have a very unique body shape.
Yeah,
they're like
more circular.
Yeah, they're kind of squat. They're like, I'm Crook.
Look at me walking around with my hooks for hands.
I don't know why. I think that's just my troll noise. And whenever I think of somebody who's really squat, there's I'm a little troll.
I like it.
I always thought that Crook, the body shape of Crook, if and when the Nintendo brings back the Kremlings, I imagine they're going to come up with original Kremling designs and Kremling types, right? And I always thought this is how Nintendo would design like your stock Kremling. Like shorter, squatter. It just fits that Nintendo design philosophy a little bit more than the taller Kremlings that are more commonplace.
Yeah, I can see what you're getting at. And I'm not sure what he looks like underneath the jacket. Like, again, he could be a cut lad, but I still do imagine him as like shorter and stockier. But yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the big defining characteristic of Crook is that, one, he's got two enormous hooks. So here's where the hooks, that pirate trope, comes into play. But it's done in the most outlandish, cartoonish way possible. And that the hooks are bigger than his head. And he can use the hooks as boomerangs.
That is so... When I remember seeing a guy talk, like he was playing DKC2 like years ago for the very first time, and his friend was there with him, and he got to like Crook's March or whatever, and he saw Crook for the first time. He was like, what am I looking at? And his friend was like, dude, this guy's got two hooks for hands. It's like, dude, that is awesome.
Yeah. Not only does he have two hooks for hands, but he's got the big, enormous coat. The, it's like an old-timey sailor's jacket from like the 16 or 1700s. But again, because his head is so small, because he can barely fit in it, the coat just like wraps up around his head. He's like being swallowed up by it. And with his hooks, it just makes him look all the more ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Malik, I like this guy too.
It's just so much personality just coming out of this thing. It can barely be contained.
All of these Kremlings are just terrific in design and functionality. My God. Donkey Kong Country 2 really is not just the best video game of all time, it's just the best thing. The best thing that exists.
The best thing on this planet.
Like, I'm comparing it to, obviously I don't like food, but I'm comparing it to the oxygen.
This is better than oxygen.
I'm comparing it to water, all of these life-sustaining things that we rely on. Donkey Kong Country 2 is mine. I don't think I would still be going strong today if Donkey Kong Country 2 wasn't enriching my soul every single day.
DKC2 sustains life. You can put that on the box because it's true.
However, Donkey Kong Country 2 did not sustain the life of the next one we're talking about, Cloak. And I've paired these together because Cloaks are sort of recolored Crooks, but not really. There's enough difference in their design where the basic coat is the same, just recolor. Like Crook's got the brownish coat with like yellow trim, but Cloak has a dark green coat with reddish brown trim.
It looks nice.
Cloak is a ghost Kremling, maybe a Crook in its previous life. We don't know because we never actually see anything of its spirit other than the glowing red eyes from within the coat itself.
I always liked that.
Yeah, it's a way, like its gameplay function is it can drop down and chuck things at the Kongs. Now those can be bad things, and they often are, or sometimes they can chuck something that's good, like an item or a collectible or something you can use, like a barrel.
Is that like chaotic evil? Is that what the kids say? Or chaotic neutral?
Yes, old man Malik. It's or it's like lawful evil, maybe?
Something like that. But I like how their allegiance is like in question whenever you see them. It's like, why are you helping me?
I think they're truly bad. They're truly evil, but they've just got so much shit they're throwing at you that occasionally they won't realize, like, oh, I didn't mean to throw that. Damn it.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh well, can't be helped.
they just get on a roll. They just get like in the zone, and they just like, yeah, I'm Cloak. I chuck things at you. Whee! And then they're like, oh, damn it.
I like their little laugh too, because if you know Rare like we do, you can tell that's Chris Sutherland's laugh.
Yeah. Also, like, I'm sure I've realized this before, and I probably said so on air, but I never realized they do have different buttons than Crook does in his jacket. Cloaks have skull buttons.
Oh, cool. I never noticed that until you mentioned it.
They almost look like Sea of Thieves skulls, just a little bit. I know, like, skulls are skulls. Like, there's only so many variations you can have on a skull. But no, go to the DK Vine Gallery, everyone, or be like Daisy-Matt and go to Mario Wiki and look up Cloak, because the little skull's on there, and you can really tell on its his like left cuff. On the sleeve there. The skull looks like the same skull that's used for Athena's fortune or like the ancient coins in the game. Interesting. Is that new headcanon forming? We'll see. I'll come back to that later.
Is this going to keep me up at night? We'll see.
Oh, no. Malik, let me tell you, I don't want to go on a tangent because we're like Cloak in the zone now. We're just chucking things at a nice steady clip right now. But let me tell you, I've been having insomnia for the past couple weeks because I started thinking about DK Vine projects. And generally it's just like, oh, I should do a video about Donkey Kong's birthday. and I started thinking about all the little things I could do with it, all the little ideas. And before I know it, it's 2 a.m. And I haven't actually done anything. I'm just sitting in bed visualizing it.
I sort of do that to help me get to sleep, but yeah, I guess different strokes for different folks.
You never get so like enraptured with your own work that you're just like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And then before you know it, it's 4 a.m. and you haven't gotten to sleep yet.
I stop myself at around 12:30.
Okay. I try to do that, but I have my most creative thoughts late at night and I get carried away at times.
Yeah, me too. I'll wake up at like 4 a.m. and I'll try and jot something down if I have like a crazy lucid dream or something.
Yeah. Of course, maybe I shouldn't do that because some of the ideas that came to me late at night were, what if I make the argument that Donkey Kong could be real if we think fifth dimensionally?
No, I loved that. I love to keep doing that.
Malik, thank you, but your kind words aren't enough to soothe the scars I bear from the reception to that video. I bear scars like Clump. I have seen battle, and I'm all the worse.
I'm right
for
there
it.
with you.
No, but Cloakster's is such a nice concept too for a Kremling ghost because it's all about like less is more, right? Like they could just be like boos, like a ghost. Here's a ghost. Oh, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. But I think withholding the actual visual of them and just being a possessed coat is kind of creepier than seeing like a Casper the Friendly Kremling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, if they didn't make that noise where they go, oh, I would have never known they were Kremlings.
Right. Well, they're also
it's the Kremling.
They're also classified as Kremlings in the character parade, so that also kind of helps.
That too, but before you get to the end of the game, it's like, what is this? Oh, it's a Kremling. It just made the noise. Okay, cool.
And of course,
now I know.
Of course, Rare and much of the Donkey Kong Country 2 team would further explore the idea of haunted garments, haunted coats in Grab by the Ghoulies.
Ah, yes, I always think the same thing. I love the haunted coat.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, it's the same creative team. And so, like, I could say, like, well, it's the same universe, you see, you know, so yes.
Voiced by Steve Mails.
Yeah. Coats can be haunted in the DKU, yes. But I do think things are creepier the more understated they are. Like, one of my biggest things with Spirit Halloween animatronics, Malik, they go on long rambling monologues. And they tell you, like, oh, I'm Bucko the Clown, and I like to murder children, and what I'm gonna do to you, little boy or little girl or little them, is I'm going to lure you into my carnival with my poisoned popcorn and cotton candy. And then when you're nice and drunk, I'm gonna flay off your skin, and I'm going to wear it as my clown pants. And you get 20 minutes into it and you're like, why haven't you just killed me yet?
This is a new concept to me, so this is just terrifying me right off the get-go.
See, I hate it because what's scary is the unknown. And the more you know about the unknown, the less scary it becomes. Less is more in horror and the supernatural. So that's why I like Cloak. But also, that's why I like our next Kremling. Cackle. Now, Cackle goes all in. It's a ghostly, skelly Kremling. But Cackle only appears in one level. It's a contained, haunted library that I guess Kremling was trying to expand into before they just abandoned it because, it's haunted. Yeah. It's haunted by the ghost of Kremling pirates past, but it's done in such a way that it's not overdone. There's no way to defeat Cackle. You can't throw a barrel at Cackle. Cackle is just going to pursue Diddy and Dixie, and the only safety is getting beyond the purview of their haunting. When you get far enough on the roller coaster that they no longer haunt that area of the library, and they can't chase you anymore.
This guy, I always thought Cackle looked like they were just ripped straight out of Killer Instinct, and Killer Instinct terrified me as a small child, so it's always cool seeing Cackle.
Killer Instinct is scarier than people give it credit for, and I will agree with you. The music alone for Killer Instinct, that Robin Beanland soundtrack, the theme for Killer Instinct, it's very intimidating. It's very foreboding. And that's not even getting into Killer Instinct, as Cameron pointed out so eloquently on Kongversations Past. Killer Instinct is basically one big monster mash. Because you've got the skeleton, you've got the wolfman, you've got the killer cyborg.
The lady in a jumpsuit.
Yeah.
I get it though. Yeah.
The voluptuous ninja assassin in the jumpsuit. Yeah. Scary.
Yeah. My favorite, the universal monster.
But no, like Killer Instinct is kind of scary when you're a kid going from Donkey Kong Country to Killer Instinct because Rare made it. You're like, whoa, oh.
Yeah, literally me. I saw the black cartridge on the wall, and I was like, I'm not touching that when no one else is here.
Yeah, the Super Nintendo cartridge was all black. It's like, whoa.
It's like, oh man, what is this? What is this?
No, Cackle does kind of resemble Killer Instinct's character because, again, ACM renders, Silicon Graphics workstations at Rare in the mid-90s, they would look very similar. But people love Cackle. I think Cackle is... The thing people love about Cackle is there's no real sugarcoating of Cackle. He's a skeleton crocodile man.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a knife in one hand and a cutlass at his hip.
Sometimes I get confused and think that's just one big knife going through him. Double-edged sword, literally.
Yeah, and of course, Cackle was an alteration from what they were originally going to put in Haunted Hall, or at least the initial idea they had, which is Mr. X.
Yeah. This guy.
Mr. X, Mr. X was, of course, seen in early magazines as, again, Paul Makachek. I don't want to keep steering people towards that Paul Makachek interview I did, but you gleaned some interest.
It was good.
Yeah, thank you. You gleaned some interesting stuff, and he was talking about Commuter Kong and Rambunctious and how they would provide all these assets to magazines, you know, to promote their games early on, but by the time they provided the renders, those characters were cut. And Mr. X was in the same boat. Mr. X is interesting in that he reads less as a ghost unless you look at his red eyes. But as we've already established, red eyes don't necessarily mean you're a ghost or undead, or maybe they do. But the only thing that really like reads as, oh wait, there's something off about this guy is that he doesn't have legs, and the bottom of his outfit, which is this like naval commander outfit, it's all torn.
Yeah. It's like something happened to this guy, and he's got no legs, no pegs.
I like that. No legs, no pegs. That would be like a good hashtag for like the ghost Kremlings, right? Like so way I be living my afterlife. No pegs, no legs. But Mr. X, he presumably just flowed through the level just like Cackle did. But he had kind of like bluish gray, very like deadish looking skin. And like I said, he was a naval commander, presumably in the Kremling naval ranks. He had a hook for his left hand, and, well, actually 2 hooks. He wasn't chasing you with a sword, he was chasing you with his hooks, but he still had the same cutlass at his hip like Cackle does.
Do you think he died in the Crimean War?
Oh, that would be good headcanon if he actually made it into the game. Although I suppose Mr. X could still be in your headcanon, as there was, like, a Mr. X. We've just never actually seen him in the actual canon. Like, a Mr. X maybe died in the Crimean War, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that, yeah. If I ever got to have a go at, like, directing aspects of a Donkey Kong game, like, you gotta get this in there, you gotta get that in there. Yeah, maybe I'd work that in somehow. Work in Mr. X.
I say go for it. I would do it.
And then finally, well, not finally, but the last Kremling who's in the character parade under the Kremling Cutthroat rank. He's not a drone. He's not even really a baddie in the traditional sense. He is Clubba, the singular Kremling who operates the kiosk that grants you access to the lost world deep beneath Crocodile Isle.
And it's no muffin kiosk, I'll tell you that much.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But I'm a big Clubba fan, Malik.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Clubba is an undervalued and underused member of the Kremlings. And you know, there's not a whole lot to him. He's a big guy. He's got the proportions of Cruncha, only like magnified tenfold. And yeah. He's got the eye patch. With that. He's got the eye patch. He's got the ship anchor tattoo. But he's also got a big, enormous club with spikes with like nails in it.
Yeah, this guy means business.
His name is Clubba, and he's got a big club. But the thing I like about Clubba is he's got a little bit more going on by virtue of having a little bit of dialogue. And you get the sense that even though he's very antagonistic towards the Kongs at first, he of course lightens up a little bit once you pay him 15 Krem coins, right? And then from there, he'll make these little comments like, K-Roll treats us rotten. I kind of hope you get them.
And like, you're like, hey, it's my favorite customers. How y'all doing?
Right. Now, of course, you can also choose to fight him, which is very fun and very pointless. because all he
As
does
his rare does.
Yeah, he just beats you with his club, and then he knocks you out of the kiosk.
Mm-hmm.
It's pointless. It's just color. It's just world building, but it's there. And the fact that it's there, and the only purpose it serves is to return to the map screen in a very fun way. That is why I'm a Rare fan. That is why I am a fan of this team. That's why this is my favorite game of all time. It's stuff like that that's completely contrary to, like, game design 101, right? Like, no, why are you wasting your time with that? Why are you wasting precious calories doing that? It serves no purpose. And I'm like, it makes me entertained, does it not? Ergo, that is the purpose.
I think one of my favorite things about Clubba, like when you hear his theme, and I know it doesn't do this in the game, but whenever, his theme starts up and his club is like he's beating his club in his hands, I always like to imagine that he's doing that to the beat of the song, like.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in the game, but I always, when I hear that theme, I always just mimic myself, like beating a club in my hand to the beat to that song. And it's like, it's Clubba. That's awesome.
It's such a great song, and it really does such a good job of being both like foreboding and intimidating, but also it carries that spirit of the unknown and adventure because you are going into the Kremling Lost World, and it walks such a tight rope or a tight ship rigging that
there it is.
Just little details that you never think about when you're a kid, even though it's doing that to your brain. You're making those connections unconsciously. Yeah. It's a good game, Donkey Kong Country 2. I also like that Clubba has a big scar across his chest, and we don't know, like, why, but it looks like a surgical scar. Like, it's not a scar that you would get because somebody swiped you with a cutlass or anything. It's a it's a scar that you get because you had to have open heart surgery or something.
Yeah. It's pretty nasty.
Yeah. Clubba, I'll talk a little bit about Clubba when we're wrapping up, but Clubba, I really would like to see Clubba again, beyond Donkey Kong Land 2. You know, like, I would like to see Clubba come back as a more fully realized character. And maybe, probably, more than likely, that's never going to happen in my lifetime because Nintendo would look at him and say, well, his name is Clubba and he carries a big club. There's not a lot we can do with that. And,
cowards.
Unimaginative thinking right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we move on to a couple of other baddies I want to discuss, and bosses, I do have to quickly give some lip service to the Kremlings that are in the game that don't have pirate theming. Okay, so there are clamp-ons, yes. There are crockheads. There's nothing about them that has any connection to piracy other than they are Kremlings. They are crocodilian. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I like them. Just like I like all the Kremlings in the game, but this is a Talk Like a Pirate Day episode, not a talk about all the baddies in Donkey Kong Country 2 episode. So, sorry, we're moving on.
Yeah, I will say the two things about these characters in particular. Yeah. Clampon, I've never liked the name because it sounds
like tampon.
Yeah.
But that's it. There's nothing wrong with tampons, though, Malik.
I can get past that.
We have to get over our aversion as men to the idea of menstruation. It's a fact of nature. And you know what? I'm secure enough. I'll buy tampons for my wife. I'll go out and I'll be like, I'll go to the tampon store next to the beer store and I'll be like, yes.
The beer store. Did you say the tampon store?
The tampon store, yes. I will have one box of your finest tampons, please. I'm secure enough in my masculinity, in my gender identity, that I'll go and do that. And so clamp on, yeah, bring it on.
No, it just makes me giggle. So,
okay.
I was like, but like this, actually. But crockheads, I remember I looked them up just the other day, and it said, according to like the Prima guide, they are primitive Kremlings. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true or not, but I kind of like the thought of them being primitive Kremlings because Yeah. They don't really do anything. They look very different to the usual Kremlings. What is, if they're just ahead? I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. I always took them to be, they didn't quite cook long enough in the primordial energy of the Kremling source. So they just kind of got notched a few rungs above just your typical crocodile. But not enough to walk on hind legs, not enough to wear clothes, not enough to, you know, have a whole gimmick like, I'm the guy with swords, I'm the guy who swings from a rope, I'm the guy who hides in a barrel. They're just in the muck. Now they can they can adapt well enough to survive in magma. That's pretty cool, but
that is pretty metal.
Just looking at the live stream really quick, though. Chris agrees with me. My comment about Crook and Cloak potentially being one and the same. Thank you, Chris, for backing both of us up so much in the live stream today, validating us. When we need that validation, Malik and I, we're too hard on ourselves. Like, I'm like, oh, I made a video that people didn't like, and I'm going to cry about it. But then I come into the live stream and I see, no, you're right. Crook and Cloak are probably the same. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm a genius. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello to FizzTap, who's joined us. FizzTap has a comment about Cloak. Says, do you think Cranky will possess his vest when he dies?
That sounds stupid.
Yeah, so we actually do have a comparison of what Cranky might look like, and it's his wife. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, his wife died, and she's just, like, in her nightgown that she died in, so... that makes me so sad. What, that Wrinkly died in her nightgown?
Yes! It's just, I mean,
a lot of elderly people who die of natural causes do die in their sleep. That's where the term deathbed comes from.
I guess, but it still makes me sad.
I mean, yeah, Malik really hoped Wrinkly died in a jet skiing accident, like, or
you know it. Go out fighting,
bungee jumping while doing the do. Yeah,
doing the do.
You know, it was 1999. Wrinkly Kong was filming a Mountain Dew commercial. You know how it goes.
I know how it goes.
Chris
asked me. What were you going to say?
I was going to say the Kongs went to the X Games that year. It was going to be a big crossover game, and then Mr. X Games. Wrinkly Kong broke her neck in the skate park. And so they scrapped the whole game.
Chris asks, Malik, would you rather Wrinkly have died in glorious combat? Kind of, yeah. Like I said, go out fighting.
Yeah, Wrinkly was dispatched in the Bosnian War in the 90s.
Oh dear. Maybe not that crazy.
All right, Malik. Let's talk about the bosses, the barnacled bosses, if we're to take the character braid at face value.
Oh,
I love that, right?
They got barnacles on them.
Now, here's the thing about the bosses of Donkey Kong Country 2, at least the original Donkey Kong Country 2. All but one carry the pirate theming. So even if they're not Kremlings per se, they are still part of the Kremling crew. They are still part of the Kremling cutthroats, the term I'm using to define the piratical branch of the Kremling crew, right?
Right.
So Crow is the first boss. Crow is a large necky, of course. We know who Crow is. I don't need to tell you who Crow is, Malik. I don't need to tell our audience who Crow is. Crow's a necky. But Crow lives in the aptly named Crow's Nest of the Gangplank Galleon. And Crow also wears the little pirate hat, little tri-corner hat, or whatever you call it, with the Kremling Jolly Roger on it. And it's worth pointing out really quick, I didn't bring this up when we were talking about canon. Have you noticed that canon Cannon's hat is just a traditional Jolly Roger, the skull and bones. No reference to the beloved Ubisoft game, but
yeah, no, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, maybe they didn't have the Kremling Jolly Roger designed when they designed Cannon, but it's like, no, they had it designed in 1994. They had it designed in Donkey Kong Country 1. So maybe the idea of using it, bringing it back, or like they just didn't think, we already have the Jolly Roger. So, but they left just a traditional skull and bones on Cannon's hat. It's weird.
It looks like Clump didn't get the memo.
Now, we know, like, Kremlings do utilize a skull and bones imagery in the non-piratical ranks. We see it on the leather vest that Crunch first wears in Diddy Kong Racing, and then later Donkey Kong 64's critters that would carry forward a couple years into the buyout era. The Kremlings who appeared in Mario Power Tennis on the court also have the skull and bones. And then later on, in the Payon redesigns going forward, they still utilize like skull imagery for their belts. So
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. A little something to chew on. I don't know if it means anything. Yeah.
Yeah. It probably doesn't, but I'm still going to chew on it.
Yum, yum. Crow has the traditional Kremling Jolly Roger. I also like this little detail, Malik. So in the remake for the GBA of Donkey Kong Country 1, they added Crow's Nest to the Crow's Nest of the Gangplank Galleon. If you go back and you look at that version of Donkey Kong Country, you'll see Crow's eggs in there.
No way. Like on the world map, you said?
Yeah, of the Game Boy Advance version, yeah.
Wow. My God.
I know. It's
I see it. I see it.
Such a commitment to detail.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
nice.
Crow I always took to be like always working on the Gangplank Galleon, always like working the Crow's Nest, right? Being on the lookout for enemy ships or Donkey Kong Island. We're getting close. K-Rool, like get all those cannons ready, like to make it rain on our own deck. But
make it rain.
Crow also seems to be an incubator for Neckies, which again you would think Crow would be like a motherly figure, and I'm sure he is. But he's again his gender, his pronouns are he, him. So I don't know. I guess like. Unlike zingers, Neckies are just like the eggs are harvested by the Kremlings, and they're like, you're working for the Kremling crew, future Neckie. We're taking you to Crow, where Crow is gonna warm you up and hatch you and raise you.
I thought maybe they were like penguins, where they, the males and the females both sit on eggs. Oh wait, no, the males sit on eggs for penguins.
Well, okay, maybe these vultures are like penguins in that regard.
Yeah.
We don't know. We've never met a lady Neckie, right? So it isn't like King Zing and Queen Bee, where we have some sort of idea of how Zinger parental roles operate.
Yeah.
Anyway, you kill Crow. He dies and he becomes a ghost later on. Yeah. Which again, I love that Donkey Kong Country 2 took the trope of Donkey Kong Country just like recoloring a boss, the very necky, very naughty, really naughty situation where you just change the color and you make them a little bit more difficult. Master Necky to Master Necky Senior, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, that's dumb. That was dumb.
What if we killed him?
Yeah. What if we killed him and brought him back as a ghost later on?
That's pretty metal.
That level of like thinking things through and carrying things forward a little bit more than the first go around. I just love that about this team in particular. Like they did that quite a bit when they did Banjo-Kazooie to Banjo-Tooie. I know people have a debate about which is better, but they did a lot of things in Tooie as a response to what they did the first go around. And then, Greg Mayles and crew, like they would do Trouble in Paradise after Viva Pinata, and much in the same way, so.
Mm-hmm.
Cleaver is the boss of World 2, and of course is just an enormous Cutlass. Either robotic or possessed by a spirit, because you're led to believe at first that Cleaver is being controlled by some sort of lava monster in the lava, because there's like this hand holding it in the lava. But then you realize in the last round of the boss fight, oh no, actually, Cleaver is the one in control, because Cleaver can just attack me all by himself.
Yeah, I always thought that too. Where it's like, wait a minute, what is that hand? Is there like a lava Kremling in there or something? But no, it's just Cleaver. It's just the sword.
Just Cleaver would be the name of this spin-off.
Mm-hmm.
I also like how the hilt of Cleaver is the Kremling Jolly Roger fit like front on.
Yeah.
Like that's the only time I've ever seen it like rendered as an actual skull and bones, like three-dimensionally. So that's really cool.
I think this makes Cleaver an honorary Kremling.
Sure. I mean, maybe it's possessed by a Kremling ghost, like a Cackle or a Cloak or some other unseen Kremling type,
or a Cutlass,
or a Cutlass, or a Cut Lad even,
or a Cut Lad. This lad cuts you.
The very first Kremling boss that isn't K. Rool in a Donkey Kong game is the boss of Kremkey, the Third World, Kudgel, who is just... I know I just said they got over like just recoloring characters and calling them like new bosses, but this is just recoloring Clubba and calling him a new character.
Yeah, but you know I'm okay with that because you know we don't actually fight Clubba, so
no. The only time
we are.
The only time you try to fight Clubba, you know, it's a joke. You can, but I'm okay with it too, because talking about your general scales problem, right? Like one of the biggest regrets people have about Star Fox Adventures is General Scales is such an intriguing character, such a cool design. You want to fight him. You want to spend that time with that character, and you don't get to. You're robbed of it. And Cudgel, at the very least, gave us that visceral thrill of fighting Clubba in a proper boss fight without sullying the character of Clubba.
Totally, yeah.
And of course, my headcanon was always that Cudgel is the brother of Clubba.
Yep, I think everyone thinks that. I mean,
okay,
he's got the same club. Look at that.
Now, my headcanon goes even further because I do consider Donkey Kong Land 2 to be a separate adventure from Donkey Kong Country 2. And Cudgel, of course, did not return in Donkey Kong Land 2. They combined Crocodile Cauldron and Krem Key into Krem Cauldron, and Cleaver was the boss of Krem Cauldron, so Cudgel did not make the cut. And so my headcanon was Cudgel died in the initial destruction of Crocodile Isle, and Clubba is very upset about it because Clubba holds that K. Rool killed his brother.
Yep, I like to think that too.
That's a story I would make a Donkey Kong game out of. The return of Clubba seeking retribution for the death of Cudgel. And you know what? Let me tell you, it would only please about 15 people out there.
That's okay. I would be one of those 15 people.
And believe you me, there would be a goldfish hiding in that game.
I believe that. We were just talking about that. I'm serious about this goldfish thing.
We were. Captain K. Rool. Do I need to talk about Captain K. Rool? I feel like he speaks for himself. He speaks for himself. I love everything about Captain K. Rool's design. Captain K. Rool is my favorite version of K. Rool. Like, obviously, King K. Rool will always be the most iconic. And Baron K. Roolenstein can be fun in small doses. And he was a boxer once, you know. But Captain K. Rool, holy shit, what a great look for him.
I'm looking at the render right now, and I notice that, like, his left hand, he's, like, holding up one of his fingers, like, oh, 1 second.
Yeah,
you know
I made in our DK Vine gallery captions, I made a Doctor Strange joke, Infinity War. or
What
Endgame.
was the joke?
Doctor Strange holds up his finger to Tony Stark, saying this is our one chance of stopping Thanos.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah. So the thing I love about Captain K. Rool, other than everything about him, is the blunderbuss he's got. It's cartoonish, but it's just a realistic looking gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's outlandish in the size, but it's still got like the wood grain hilt, and it's just looks like an antique pirate weapon that can do outlandish things like fire cannonballs that are spiked. The spikes can like protrude out of the cannonball after the fact, and then it shoots like noxious gases
That, invert your controls.
which were, of course, developed in the pipelines of Kremco in the Northern Hemisphere, as Donkey Kong Country 3 would later establish.
Yes.
It's all connected, but
Yeah.
I understand why Captain K. Rool can't be the default version of the character, and we'll talk a little bit as we wrap things up here about how Smash paid tribute to Captain K. Rool. But this will always be like my preferred iteration of K. Rool because he just looks like such a fun character.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
I think it's the coat, and I think it's the fact that he does everything with his blunderbuss. Like all of his attacks, all of his range of motion, it's like a one-size-fits-all gadget, like Donatello's tech bow.
Yeah. That's what I like to hear.
Malik comes alive when I mention latter-day Ninja Turtles lore.
I love it all, but yeah, it's still going strong, man. It's so good.
And I have to mention this character, even though I don't think it's applicable. We'll call it an honorable mention. Kerosene from the Game Boy Advance remake is a big Kremling boss that breathes fire. Not a pirate in any sense. There's nothing piratical about Kerosene, other than Kerosene will fight you while holding two cleaver-like swords. So,
yeah, that's something. I'm glad this guy exists. Like, Rare wasn't allowed to make original Donkey Kong games, but they didn't say anything about making original Donkey Kong characters for the remakes.
Yeah. I think Kerosene might be my least favorite addition, like major addition to the GBA remake trilogy, just because I feel like Stronghold Showdown works as the fake out, and having a real boss in there detracts from it a little bit. I think they could have maybe communicated the fake out a little bit better, like what exactly is happening right now. And they weren't averse to adding cutscenes or recontextualizing cutscenes, so I wish they kind of would have done that. I understand you want to give returning fans like value to the money spent, but I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I think out of all the original characters in the GBA remake trilogy, all of the Kremling racing ostriches are up there.
Of course.
Croctopus from DKC3 GBA, and of course, Bachelor Bear.
Well, he's obviously best.
Yeah, okay. I'll allow it. I'll allow Bachelor Bear. He hangs out in a hot tub all day. Yeah, he might be best.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There's also a couple of non-Kremlings in the baddie ranks, which are classified as lazy landlubbers in the character parade, as well as submerged sea dogs. My first introduction to the term sea dog as well, which Sea of Thieves has run into the ground. But the lazy landlubbers, first and foremost, is a singular character. I just talked about him on social media a couple days ago in preparation for this episode. Screech the Parrot.
I love Screech.
Screech is terrific because I love the idea. Because, of course, if there's one thing Donkey Kong fans love more than the Kremlings, it's the animal buddies, right? We adore the animal buddies, and it feels like we've had to fight tooth and nail to keep the animal buddies relevant as a fandom. Because there's just this idea that, well, we don't need the animal buddies if we give the Kongs more abilities. It's like, no, you need the animal buddies because they're fun characters. And I love riding around on a swordfish and a cool-ass spider with sneakers.
Yeah. Derp. Obscure reference for anybody who doesn't know.
Good ass weed wasn't
Spit on webs.
Spit on webs, right? A very, very obscure Facebook page that the deepest inner circle of Donkey Kong fandom obsesses over.
I think about it and wait every day to see is there going to be a new post? What's it going to be in the next 5 years?
I'm really hoping they like start a TikTok or something.
And it just has like real spiders just walking around the house or whatever.
Superimpose sneakers on them. But yeah, Screech is the anti-animal buddy, an antagonistic animal buddy. K. Rool's parrot. And I love that. I just, like, yeah, you can say, oh, Screech's Sprint is a brutal level if you don't cheat. But I love Screech himself. I really wish they would have run with this idea more of the Kremlings and K. Rool in particular having their own, like, mirror dark counterparts to the Kong's animal buddies.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea. It's like, why did they introduce it just to not do anything with it down the road?
I mean,
why would you do that to us?
One thing is Screech is Captain K. Rool's parrot, you know, because pirates have parrots. And when he's not a pirate anymore, is there any reason to keep the parrot around? Probably not.
The parrot could, change things up a bit. I don't know.
the parrot could, like, give himself a hunchback to be his, like, assistant as Baron K. Rool and stuff. Yeah. The other thing I really like about Screech, because it's the only other time Screech has any impact whatsoever, in this case literally, is beating Squawks with a baseball bat on the box art, on the Western box art of Donkey Kong Country 2.
It's like, I didn't know those wings could hold anything.
Well, yeah, that's another thing about Screech is Screech looks like a malnourished version of Squawks because he's got, like, the jaundiced yellow eyes and doesn't have as many feathers on his wings. So there's like this mangy kind of, like, diseased aspect to Screech. Like the hard scrapple life of Crocodile Isle is just taking a toll on this bird.
Yeah, these colors do not occur in nature on parrots, as far as I'm aware.
But then again, Crocodile Isle defies nature in so many ways.
Yep.
Moving on, we talked about naughties a couple of weeks ago here on the Kongversation for quite a long time. A shocking amount of time, in fact, considering Dawson and I seem dispassionate about the topic, but not really. You know, it's just...
I know.
But the replacement for naughties in Donkey Kong Country 2 and Land 2 were Neeks. And I just like this idea that, yeah, we don't need the beavers in this game. We're going to replace them with ship rats. And it's just this little subtle way of, again, keeping the theming strong throughout the entire game. Because while not every enemy associated with the Kremling crew in Donkey Kong Country 2 have a pirate theme, like Spiny is a porcupine.
It's just a porcupine.
Just a porcupine. Just a porcupine. There's zingers are in the game, and they're just zingers, as seen in Donkey Kong Country 2, right? But
yeah,
Neeks are ship rats. And that's just such a nice little touch. And it teaches kids a little something about the Black Death and the spread of plague.
Yeah. Nasty.
When I first learned about the Black Death, like in full in school, it would have been after Donkey Kong Country 2 came out. And when they started talking about ship rats, I made the connection. I was like, like Neeks! And to this day, I can't think about ship rats and the bubonic plague without thinking about these goofy cartoon rats with elongated noses.
I love that for you, Hyle. I really
I know.
do.
I live a magical life, don't I?
Yeah, you do, actually.
FizzTap concurs. Naughties were not built for the pirate life.
No, they weren't really built for life.
No.
Their eyes.
And they just get, they finally come back in Donkey Kong 64 and they just get shoved in holes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We talked about zingers and how zingers came back, but were basically the same. The other baddie, non-Kremling baddie who came back from Donkey Kong Country were mini Neckies. And again, I like that regular Neckies didn't come back, but mini Neckies did.
Yeah, they get their time in the sun.
Yeah, we're still gonna call them mini Neckies, at least in Country 2. Land 2 just called them Neckies, but Country 2 still went out of their way to say, no, these are mini Neckies, but yeah, the regular Neckies aren't here. So why these are mini Neckies, you don't have any context for unless you played Donkey Kong Country or Land. I love that. But
yeah,
mini Neckies, they did go out of their way, maybe because of the connection to Crow. I don't know, but they went out of their way to give them a little bit of pirate theming. They gave them bandanas on their heads.
That's all you really need, I think. It does a lot.
And maybe this is what Crow does, is he puts the bandanas on their heads to say, this is one of mine. These are the ones I raised.
This is my legion. Do you think mini Neckies are a subspecies?
I always that's the thing, right? That's the thing that we kind of glossed over. Because in Country and Land, I just took them to be young versions of Neckies. But then Crow seems to be a large mini Neckie.
It's like, you know how they have like certain species of animals and one of them is like the lesser whatever, like the lesser antelope or something? Maybe this is that for Neckies. Or
it's like miniature horses. They're not ponies. They're just small horses. Been bred that way. So maybe we're onto something here. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we're on something here.
Maybe we are. Malik says no. Malik hasn't been to the beer store today. or Dr. Danks.
Or Dr. Danks.
For good ass weed. But I don't know. Malik has been doing this podcast with me for 2.5 hours now.
Yeah, and I'm not complaining. People think I'm like on something half the time when I'm on here anyways.
Yeah. I've seen comments that are like, oh, Malik was high as fuck in that episode. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's just Malik.
I'm high on life.
Malik is just laid back in general. Like, what are you talking about?
I'm just a goofball. Like, people look at me, it's like, are you all right, dudes? I'm fine. Thanks for asking.
You're just ball-like Crook underneath that coat. You're just a roly-poly ball of fun.
Yeah, in more ways than one, I suppose.
Finally, Cato Nine Tails, Malik. So the only reason this is pirate themed is they just decided to apply the notion of the Cato Nine Tails, the 9 appendaged whip that pirates would use. Well, not just pirates, but it'd be used for like corporal punishment. It would be used to keep the crew in line. It's also used in kink play nowadays, but the Cato Nine Tails was applied literally to the baddie Cato Nine Tails. It's a cat, Malik, with 9 tails.
I guess it's a cat. Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's a cartoony, mangy looking cat with like purple
a Disney
hair.
Afternoon reject or something.
Yeah, it looks like some sort of chip mascot from the 90s. Like some sort of off-brand Cheetos, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like some nasty thing that makes your tongue blue.
Right, like maybe some sort of like yogurt brand or something like.
Yeah, some like Danimals looking thing.
Yeah. Dunkaroos. Dunk with ukulele.
It all comes together again.
This was also my introduction to what a cat o' nine tails was as a kid.
Of course.
Yeah. And just cool. Just getting stuck in that web of tails and getting thrown up into the air, which of course you have to do sometimes to get items or to get to barrels or what have you. It's an enemy that also can aid your progress, although not intentionally.
Yeah.
And
little dude.
I always just took these to be, they were regular cats that were evolved by the Kremling source and just became these little freaks.
Yep, little freakzillas with their 9-looking tails. Just
Yep.
Interesting.
Now, as far as the underwater baddies, there's not really a whole lot to say because none of them have eye patches, none of them have earrings. There's nothing like, they gave I don't know, a tattoo of a sparrow to this jellyfish. But we've got Lockjaw and Flotsam, which are both named after nautical things. Lockjaw, not so much. Lockjaw, he just got a big jaw. But Flotsam, for sure. And Flotsam is a stingray. And interestingly, Wild Sting was the boss of the Gangplank Galleon in Donkey Kong Land, Malik.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember that guy.
Paul Makachik, I've always wondered, was the stingray Wild Sting in Donkey Kong Lane, which we apply retroactively as a Flotsam, was that just taken from Donkey Kong Country 2, which would have been in development with some overlap, right, with Donkey Kong Land? And in the interview with Paul Makachik said, yes, they did borrow some assets from the Donkey Kong Country 2 team. And we were running along, and I didn't want to interject and say, like Wild Sting, because I have a feeling Paul Makachik wouldn't have remembered which one Wild Sting was. But
well, we might never know for sure. He might have gone on a tangent about how much he loves stingrays in particular, and he was like, I really wanted to take this stingray from those guys because I love stingrays. We just don't know.
Then again, the Donkey Kong Country 2 team, he said it went back and forth, so maybe they took that asset and made Flotsam. Either way, I think there's a connection there in the real world as well as in universe.
I think so too, yeah.
Chris says 159 minutes I've sat here.
That is so amazing. This man was making games when I was like in elementary school or whatever, and now he's listening to me talk for almost 3 hours about nonsense.
Obsessing about the games in a way the creators of the games never wanted us to. Nope,
but we're doing it, and I'm glad that he is loving it, I have to say.
When I was talking with Paul Makachik, I talked with Paul Makachik the other week, Malik. I did an interview with him on the Kongversation.
Of course I listened to it.
I always have to rein in my zealotry and my weirdo tendencies when I'm around the creators. Like when I met Greg Mails, I wasn't like, oh my god, Greg Mails. I tried to be a normie for once, but with Paul Makachik, I let the veil drop when we got to Mr. Pants discussion. I don't know if you noticed, but I let my freak flag fly high at that point, and I think he appreciated it. I don't think he was put off by it. He was like, finally, somebody out there.
I think when you're like, especially when a conversation in an interview goes on, or if you know the person a little well, I think you can just kind of let things, like, just get geeky, and you'll be surprised, because I have been out-geeked by a few people I've interviewed myself, and I'm like, whoa, I think I should do this a bit more often. Obviously, respectfully, but yeah.
Right. It depends on who the creator is and what the subject matter is. But yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, wrapping things up here, Malik. I think I love all of these characters, all of the Kremling pirates. Like, I know I said Klinger was my favorite of the originals, and I still think that's true. But it's almost neck and neck with all of them. They're all so terrific, and that's why it's a shame that once Donkey Kong Land 2 shipped, there was I don't want to say de-emphasis, because of course Rare would reinvent the Kremlings with every appearance afterward. And I like the Kremlings at Donkey Kong Country 3. I would not just want them to get stuck with the pirates, right? That would make Donkey Kong Country 2 and Land 2 less special, and we wouldn't be able to be exposed to such brilliant characters like Cuff and Clout. And I don't want to live in a world without
those guys.
Well, I was thinking about, the nude Kremlings wearing just leather gloves, and I was thinking, of course, about Cuff and Clout. I don't want to live in a world without Cuff and Clout, which, again, they sound like strippers. They sound like Chippendales dancers. Now, please welcome to the stage, Cuff and Clout.
Cuff and Clout Rescue Rangers.
Yeah. When Malik thinks Chippendales, that's the Chippendales Malik thinks of. The cartoon gamer, everyone.
Yeah. I haven't seen a single episode of Rescue Rangers.
What? Malik, I've seen Rescue Rangers. I watched the Disney Afternoon, Malik.
I played the game, the first one, and I thought that game was awesome. But maybe I should watch some Rescue Rangers just to see what it's like.
I can't talk to you about like how when you're a kid and you were upset that you were attracted to the lady mouse in the Rescue Rangers. Gadget, yeah. It's like, why do I have a thing for Gadget? She's a mouse. This is no.
Well, I'm watching Goof Troop right now, and I know everybody likes Pete's wife.
All right, that makes me feel a little bit better for having a childhood attraction to a cartoon mouse, but
you get one.
Yeah, I get one. That was my one. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So I'm glad they like moved on, and it's made the seldom reoccurrences of the pirate Kremlings, I think, mean and matter more. Like Gloomy Galleon is definitely not my favorite world of Donkey Kong 64. I think it's a lot of people's least favorite world in Donkey Kong 64, but visually, thematically, I think Gloomy Galleon might be my favorite, just to look at. Not to play. It's miserable. It's pretty miserable, right? But the vibes of Gloomy Galleon, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting a Donkey Kong Country 2 hit off this.
And the music is taken, the main theme is taken from Dream.
Yeah, because Grant Kirkhope is a lazy man. You heard it here first, folks. Grant Kirkhope will just reuse his ideas. Is he a hack, like Malik just said? I don't know.
Grant Kirkhope recycles.
All my life they're telling me to recycle, and now climate change is inevitable. Was it all a waste? No, of course not. Recycle, people. But no, Grant Kirkhope is not a hack. I'm just having some fun. I'm just
yeah. It's all in good fun.
David Wise rips off Vangelis. It happens. We love them all the same. But yeah, Gloomy Galleon, just seeing like the Kremling Jolly Roger on the carpets and the bed sheets and the portraits of Captain K. Rool. Like, I have issues with Donkey Kong 64 that I've been quite open about during the span of the Kongversation over the many years we've been doing this, but I still like a lot about Donkey Kong 64. Like, it's a complicated case with me where Donkey Kong 64 frustrates me because I want to like it as much as some people like it. And I deluded myself when it came out into thinking it was the greatest game of all time, of course, but
it happens.
It's just so hit or miss, and the misses really detract from the hits. But the visuals of Gloomy Galleon, I'm like, this is awesome. And we also got the return of 2 pirate Kremlings still hanging around, Clobber and Kaboom.
Yeah, I liked seeing them.
Yeah, they did put Kaboom in the TNT barrels of Donkey 64, so now he's in the red TNT barrels. But hey, that ties in with Sea of Thieves later on, which has the red gunpowder barrels, which are effectively TNT barrels. So, yeah, I'm not going to turn up my nose at that.
I like how they go, come on. And then they blow up like 3 seconds later. Uh-oh.
Yeah, they're like, what did you expect, dude?
Yeah, it's like, guy, you have to know.
You're
like your second go at this.
Right, like... It's like real. Wrinkly Kong had to know what was going to happen when she skydived in that Mountain Dew commercial without the parachute.
It's do or die. Or actually, it's both.
Maybe I'm confusing it with the Banjo-Tooie commercial. I don't know.
What is the deal with rare characters jumping out of airplanes?
Jerry Seinfeld, man. That's one aspect of the 90s I would prefer to leave in the 90s, because I'm done with that guy. Let me tell you. Fucking Pop-Tarts movie. Get out of here.
I forgot about that.
B-movie. Yeah, I understand the pun. We didn't need a whole movie about it. Get out of here. All right. DK King of Swing. Now, Payon did bring back things like the Neeks, which was very cool. They didn't have pirate Kremlings per se, but they did introduce the Kremling camp in the Aqua world, which is like a Kremling pirate outpost in this like sea cove, which looks like Thieves Haven in Sea of Thieves, by the way. And
of course,
I love the Kremling camp. I was doing research for this episode, and I was sharing it with our Discord channels. And again, Cameron brought this up, just how beautiful King of Swing is, and how the art style of that game really serves the Donkey Kong cast well.
I agree. Yeah, just from this screenshot, I'd say, yeah, sure, it is pretty. I still have to play King of Swing.
You've never played King of Swing, Malik.
No, I have it downloaded on my Wii U though, so it's
good.
There haunting me.
It's haunting you like it's floating coat, always just lurking in the corner of your wardrobe.
Yeah, I turn on my Wii U and it goes, oh.
That was pretty good. That was spot on, man.
Yeah. I've had a lot of practice with this stuff, if you couldn't tell.
Well, look, we finally got you to play Star Fox Adventure, so I'm not going to hassle you about King of Swing on this episode.
I think I'll have a good time with King of Swing, like a real good time.
Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, of course, brought back King K. Rool to prominence. And what I love about K. Rool's portrayal in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is it utilized aspects of all 4 of his primary personas. Because, yes, he's the king, but he also has the boxing glove for King Crusha K. Rool. He's got the helicopter backpack that Baron K. Rulenstein uses, and he's got the blunderbuss. And not only does he use the blunderbuss, but whenever he uses it, he has to put on his pirate hat, his Captain K. Rool hat, just because he feels naked without it.
Yep, I love that detail. I feel like that was something that they would have either done or not have done, but I think they saw it and was like, he looks really stupid without the hat. Just pulling out a blunderbuss.
And it's just such a fun detail. Like, they nailed K. Rool's personality in the persona, but it's almost like this tick. It's like he can't not use the blunderbuss without wearing the hat, because he gets so wrapped up in his personas and his identities, and he's just like, no, I'm Captain K. Rool. In this brief moment in time, like, he doesn't have time to put on the coat, but he carries the hat with him, and I guess in a pocket in his cape, and he's just like, whenever I'm going to be Captain K. Rool, I have to wear the hat.
I have to look the part.
And it's just great seeing the Kremling Jolly Roger again in that like modern context.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I'm going to mention Sea of Thieves one more time, Malik. Sea of Thieves did tip its own pirate hat to the Kremlings and the notions of Kremlings and piracy with the Golden Nile ship cosmetics. Now, these are all illusions. They can't come out and say, Kremlings, Kremlings, Kremlings. But there are a couple of winks and nods if you're in the know. Like the Golden Nile lantern talks about it burning at its core. The blunderbuss says it's even scarier than facing down a cruel crocodile. So, you know. Elbow.
We know what you're up.
Elbow in your side there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I pitched this episode to you, Malik, I did so with the caveat, with the promise that not only would we be talking about the pirate Kremlings in Donkey Kong Country 2 and Land 2, but we would also talk about how they were reinterpreted for the Donkey Kong Country cartoon show.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
Yes. So what I do like, though, is that the producers, the creators of the Donkey Kong Country cartoon realized how evocative Kremling pirates were. And even though they didn't want to like rebrand K. Rool and crew in like the second season or whatever, they still wanted to get that stuff in there for errant episodes and what have you. And they did that with the character of Captain Scurvy, who is effectively Clump, or rather Cannon. They took the character design of Cannon, they used their model of Clump, they changed his skin color to look like the in-game Clump/Cannon, and yeah, that's it. They called it a day.
Yeah, but even so, I still really do like this guy. And like what you were saying about all that stuff earlier, the fact that these guys couldn't do anything with water, that didn't dissuade them from doing stuff with pirates. So I gotta give them that too.
Yeah, they didn't render water in the cartoon like Rare did. I'll say that much.
Nope. It was a serious limitation, but that didn't stop them from adding pirates. So I will give them that for, doing it anyway.
Because even they understood we can't do a Donkey Kong Country cartoon post Donkey Kong Country 2 without pirates.
Yeah.
Now,
big ups.
Here's a little bit of the lore for you. Captain Scurvy in the cartoon, General Clump's older brother. So they did acknowledge the connection there.
Yeah.
Captain Scurvy was banished from their swamp when they were little because Little Clump set off a bunch of fireworks that set fire to their homeland, apparently.
Yeah.
I just learned this doing research. So
that's okay.
Captain Scurvy took the blame to protect his brother, was cast out, and thus became a pirate on the seas.
I actually do kind of like that. That's cool.
It's a sweet little story, yeah. Captain Scurvy's ship is very clearly modeled on the Gangplank Galleon. It's got the figurehead of the Kremling. Lizard in cartoon parlance. Well, yeah, look, I'm not going to be hard on the cartoon anymore, Malik. But,
no.
There's still a couple things that will forever rankle me.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I'm right there with you.
Are you in this boat with the Kremling Jolly Roger that's forward facing rather than facing the side?
No, sir.
Yeah, I don't like this version of the Jolly Roger, and I'm not sure why they changed it or had to change it. I don't know, but it doesn't work as well for me as the video game version.
Yeah, same here. That can be said about a lot of things here, but
okay, like the water, like the bug ugly water, yes. Now, Captain Scurvy's crew, the Scurvy crew, not to be confused with the Scurvy crew, who are a bunch of crabs in Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I don't even know what that means. Oh,
It's just, my God, these names. And it's like, are you not looking at like previous stuff before you call these guys the Scurvy Crew or Captain Scurvy? Chomps, puffed up.
Yeah, puffed up. Yeah. Well, obviously a puffed up in the retro games is a puffed up who hasn't been exposed to the Kremling source, who then evolved into puffed up.
This is what we got to do.
This is how I sleep at night. Finally,
I was going to say that, but you told me you have insomnia, so I didn't say that.
I wouldn't get to sleep at all if I couldn't workshop this late at night while I'm thinking of ideas. Anyway, his crew, his first mate is Green Croc, which sucks as a name. That's
stupid.
The laziest name, but Green Croc is effectively a reskin of a critter. Therefore, the cartoon's reimagining of Clump, minus the amputation.
Mm-hmm.
But he even has the rope tied around his waist like Clumps do as a belt, which I like. I like that.
Yeah, that's kind of nice.
His talking about reusing names. It goes both ways, Malik. His second mate is Cutlass, not to be confused with Cutlass.
Yeah.
Because Cutlass in the cartoon is a reskin of K. Rool, effectively the cartoon's reimagining of Captain K. Rool.
Oh, these guys bother me so much. And
why?
I'll say one thing. Okay, so one thing that really gets me is that Green Croc, his voice actor, John Stalker, well-known Torontonian voice actor, he gives him like this Italian accent. It's like, but we were trying to find the treasure, and we were trying to do this and blah, 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 blah. But sometimes his voice gets mixed up with Green Croc. So sometimes Green Croc sounds Italian, and Cutlass sounds like it's,
French?
Not French, just whatever Green Croc, whatever Cutlass. Now I'm getting confused. One of them will sound like the other. It's like Ninja Turtles, where sometimes one voice comes out of the other one. It's like, oh, that's Mikey's voice coming out of Raphael. That's what happens with Green Croc and Cutlass here. Kills me every time.
Yeah, but once you realize that Cutlass is just their K. Rool model, you can't unsee it. And it's just like, oh.
And it's like, is that why he doesn't have a tail?
Yeah. They just recolored him like he's very naughty into really naughty. How lazy.
Like, come on. They couldn't have given him anything else.
Cutlass in the cartoon also reminds me of the erroneous trophy biography for K. Rool in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I'm like, okay, so Captain Scurvy is Clump's brother. Is Cutlass K. Rool's brother? Because, remember, the infamous trophy description in Brawl said, for King K. Rool, his brother, Captain K. Rool, made an appearance in the game Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. Wrong! Just wrong! So wrong! How did you get that wrong?
Someone must have looked at the cartoon and must have got the information mixed up in their head and was like, I think that's his brother, right? Yeah, same model.
I'm not upset about this anymore because Smash has redeemed itself so hard vis-a-vis King K. Rool. But yeah, that was a bunch of buyout. That was a bunch of buyout era drama right there.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, Polly Roger, Captain Scurvy's parrot, the cartoon's reimagining of Screech. Although I doubt the cartoon researched DKC2 enough to know who Screech was.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think they did.
Yeah.
The little picture you use here, look at his little grin. I can't stand it. I want to toe punt this guy so bad.
I did see Polly Roger. I did see episodes with Polly Roger, and yeah, fucking hate this guy.
Yeah. No, he can die.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, much of the cartoon exclusive cast is dead. Because I doubt they're ever coming back.
If there was one parrot I could take a bat to the midsection, it would be Polly Roger.
And if you do it in a Mountain Dew commercial, it's even more extreme and badass.
Oh, heck yeah. Sign me up.
All right, let's wrap everything up, Malik, because we've talked for over 3 hours now. about the Kremling Pirates.
That's not too bad.
I don't regret it. I don't regret a damn thing about my life, all right? I am proud of who I am.
Me too. I'm proud of who you are, too.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm proud of who you are, Malik.
Oh,
You're the cartoon gamer, and you're terrific.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
However, Kremlings as pirates, we love them. We love all of them, except maybe Green Croc and Polly Roger.
Yep.
The video game Kremling Pirates really did set an expectation for some parts of the Donkey Kong fandom that K. Rool and the Kremlings could or should adopt gimmicks, costumes, personas, identities with every new Donkey Kong game. And of course, K. Rool did that. He would go on to do that a little bit more. In Donkey Kong Country 3, he kind of did it half-assed in Donkey Kong 64, where he was like, I'm the king. I'm King K. Rool. Now I'm the boxer K. Rool. I got, look at my championship belt. I'm a boxer. Whatever.
Yeah.
But, the Kremlings in DKC 3 don't really have much of a unifying theme other than being new. They're all new. Like, we don't have a variant of Critter. It's just Cobble, right? But, or excuse me, I have to think in terms of the Batman spin-off Penguin show. We can't call them Cobbles. We have to call them Cobs. That's a reference that you might understand, Malik. Anyway, so
yeah, I get it.
Okay, I'm glad. It's some controversy. I like to delve my toes in the waters of controversy from time to time.
Uh-huh.
But most of the DKC 3 Kremlings were nudist, as I said, wearing their little leather gloves. Maybe they had various body piercings. And look, again, I don't kink shame here at DK Vine. I have so many kinks that I don't want to talk about on air. But believe you me, I identify with those DKC 3 Kremlings. But, you know, I've heard them explained as, well, maybe there's a theme in that they're mutations or products of experimentation, a la Baron K. Rulenstein. But I don't think that is really present in the body of work itself. I think that's a fine and fun fan theory, but I just don't really see it in the game in a way that the Kremling Pirates of DKC 2 are just very obviously are what they are, you know?
Yeah, definitely. You see the pirates, you understand what they're about. You see the DKC 3 ones, you have to think, and then you have to, make theories. And I like theories, but I like pirates more.
Well, yeah. And this is a game that I've seen played out on our DK Vine forum so many times over the last 25 years or so, where people are always like fan casting what the next Donkey Kong game could be, or their own Donkey Kong Country games. Like, we're bringing in the Kremlings. So what are the Kremlings going to be? And like, are the Kremlings going to be cowboy Kremlings in this one? Are they going to be mobster Kremlings? Are we going to do this Al Capone thing? And the thing is, I don't, like, no offense to that kind of, like, fan dreaming. That's fine. But I don't think any of that stuff fits thematically with Donkey Kong or even the broader DKU, as well as Pirate Kremlings fits the lore, the mythology, the world itself.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I can't imagine a Kremling in a cowboy hat. I think that's when I just have to stop.
Right, like Jeff's been on it, this thing recently where he keeps talking about a Wild West Donkey Kong game, and he's like, I have an idea, and I'm like, that's great, Jeff, but I don't want a Wild West Donkey Kong game. I'm sorry, but it just, it's like, I love King of Swing, but that Western world, why?
That'll be interesting when I get when I get around to that.
I think the Kremlings are adaptable, and they're very malleable, obviously, because Rare reinvented them from the ground up with most new Donkey Kong games. But I don't know. I think Kremlings as pirates is a special thing, and maybe it set the expectations way too high because they nailed it in their second or third go-around. But rather than constantly just reinventing the Kremlings to like be, vampire Kremlings. Now we've got Swedish Kremlings. I don't know, but
Swedish Kremlings.
Chocolatier Kremlings. I don't know. But rather than doing that and just like trying to chase what Country 2 got so right and always failing because you're never going to recapture the magic, I really just hope we get a pirate faction of Kremlings again. It doesn't have to be the whole game's theme. It doesn't have to be this like full-on identity rebrand for the Kremlings in a future Donkey Kong game. But like I talked about Clubba and how I want Clubba back, and I've always said Clubba could be a natural in-game counterpart to Captain Scurvy in the cartoon, where you don't want to bring K. Rool back into the pirate arena, so to speak, right? You don't want to have something other than King K. Rool, but you could still represent a pirate faction of Kremlings by doing something with Clubba. And, I think that would be cool. Maybe he could be in service of K. Rool and the larger Kremling crew still, or maybe he could be his own, like, third party, like a rogue faction that kind of plays the middle between Kong and Kremling. I don't know, but I do hope we see the pirate Kremlings again in a future Donkey Kong game, because they are too perfect to leave in the mid-1990s. Of course. That's me being far too specific, because at this point in time, I really just hope the Kremlings return in a future Donkey Kong game,
Yeah. I know I just said I can't imagine seeing them in a cowboy hat, but if someone put a critter in a cowboy hat in a Nintendo Direct tomorrow, I would not complain. I'd be cheering to see him again.
Of course, at this point, just wanting the Kremlings back in any capacity is still being far too specific, Malik, because at this point, I really, really still hope we just get a new Donkey Kong game.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.